If Divine Wood King consumed the treasures bestowed by Realm King and embarked on the path of resurrection in the future, there was hope to surpass this Pope of the ancient Moon religion. But now, there was no doubt that the Pope of the ancient Moon sect was the strongest. A family like the Bai clan, or rather the Bai Divine Mountain, could nurture a generation of popes for the ancient Moon sect. This had a lot to do with their internal cultivation methods. At Bai Divine Mountain, the cultivation emphasis was primarily on one state of mind. When the mind and spirit are unified, one becomes invincible. According to Wu's was information, Tongtian Buddha's experience after entering the ancient moon spacetime was the simplest. Upon entering the ancient moon spacetime, he joined Bai Divine Mountain. Breaking through to become the universe master was also very smooth. It took less than an era to achieve. However, after becoming the universe master, Tongtian Buddha encountered great trouble. Blame it on Realm King. He gave Tongtian Buddha a very special inheritance. The premise of receiving this inheritance was to have Tongtian Buddha convert a life within a certain paradise world. Tongtian Buddha initially thought this was a simple matter, but he regretted it upon entering that paradise. He wasted millions of eras on this, to the point where even Bai Divine Mountain almost forgot about him within the sect. Water Moon Cave, a peculiar cave paradise beneath Bai Divine Mountain, seemingly ordinary but had trapped Tongtian Buddha for countless ages. The pyramid Jian Wushuang Road silently entered this cave. There were no universe masters of the Eighth Tribulation in Bai Divine Mountain. As for whichever Bai clan ancestor saw Divine Wood King's flourishing, they had long gone to visit Divine Wood King. Even if they were in their lair, they wouldn't be able to discover Jian Wushuang. In the entire primordial white heaven, or the entire ancient moon spacetime, only the Pope of the ancient moon sect noticed Jian Wushuang's arrival. A pyramid? Jian Wushuang, the Pope of the ancient moon sect, with her tall figure, gazed at the location where Jian Wushuang descended. To cause such a disturbance in the eternal realm of Tiansong, then suddenly return to the ancient moon spacetime, how interesting. What she was staring at was Jian Wushuang's vitality. She just didn't feel like exchanging it originally, but seeing Jian Wushuang again, she felt somewhat moved. However, knowing that Jian Wushuang had entered the Water Moon Cave for important matters, she didn't go directly to find him but waited for Jian Wushuang to come out before visiting him. When Jian Wushuang rode the pyramid into the Water Moon Cave, he also felt that gaze, but he ignored it. Now, in the entire ancient moon spacetime, no one dared to make him unhappy, not even any pope. Whoosh! A slender figure directly stepped onto the land of the Water Moon Cave. The scenery was beautiful, with picturesque mountains and rivers. It was a rare paradise. After his arrival, he put away the pyramid. With a thought, he could sense the only universe master in this cave. Most of the cultivators in this cave were mortals. There were very few immortal-level cultivators. Emperors were even rarer. Moreover, Jian Wushuang could sense that within billions of miles around, there was no trace of battle. This indicated that Tongtian Buddha had done a good job of conversion. The cultivators of the whole world were peaceful. Standing on a hillside in the jungle, he glanced around and felt quite comfortable. At this moment, from a small path in the jungle, came the sound of sparse hoofbeats. After a while, a group of people and horses appeared. There were only a few people with varying levels of strength, all mortal warriors. Otherwise, they wouldn't be riding horses. When these people passed by the hillside and saw Jian Wushuang standing there dumbfounded, dressed luxuriously like a rich young master, they didn't sense any aura of a warrior from him. According to past experiences, encountering a rich young master in the deep mountains and old forests, what else could they do? Of course, rob him. But these warriors all dismounted, shouting loudly, "Is this young master lost?" Even when speaking, they had to dismount to avoid looking down on him. How polite. Jian Wushuang turned around, also very courteous. "No, I was just attracted by the scenery here and stopped to admire it for a while." "Oh, since that's the case, then we'll—" Before the other party finished speaking, Jian Wushuang leaped into the air directly. "Thank you for your concern. I'll take my leave first." Jian Wushuang flew slowly, allowing the warriors below to catch sight of his figure. Upon realizing that Jian Wushuang was a cultivator capable of flight, these people revealed expressions of extreme envy. It wasn't until Jian Wushuang disappeared from view that they mounted their horses and continued on their journey. Leaping over forests and crossing a canyon, he spotted an ordinary small town. Thin smoke rose from within the town, and smiles adorned the faces of its inhabitants. It was mid-afternoon when Jian Wushuang arrived, witnessing scenes of ordinary people returning home from their labor to have their meals. Men returned home with hoes, reaching before sunset to enjoy the meals prepared by their wives. As long as their families were safe and sound, it was the greatest tranquility for them. Passing through the canyon, he arrived at the plains where commoners congregated the most. The night passed by in the blink of an eye, and Jian Wushuang hadn't even witnessed a single scene of conflict. It wasn't until the second day, when the sun was high in the sky, that the place came alive. The fact that they could sleep until this time indicated that these commoners faced no pressure whatsoever. They rose early for exercises, had their meals, and drank tea, maintaining an extremely leisurely pace of life. There was no oppression from landlords or thieves in this mortal world. Jian Wushuang flew all the way, testing the results of his enlightenment. Among the farmhouses he observed, there were no Buddhist statues being worshipped. That was the brilliance of the Buddhist philosophy. After observing the common folk, he turned his gaze towards warriors and even cultivators. They were all the same. Teaching the methods of cultivation, they emphasized going with the flow. Cultivation was also about going with the flow, either visiting friends or secluding oneself for cultivation. There was simply no conflict. As for the needed treasures, they were either refined by friends or cultivated by oneself. Conflicts were extremely rare. In places where conflicts did occur, they were merely sparring matches. After wandering for 3 days, Jian Wushuang had surveyed the entire Water Moon Cave. His eyes eventually settled on a small city within the Water Moon Cave. The city was populated by cultivators, with numerous entrances totaling to 1 million. Tongtian Buddha was among them. His appearance had changed a lot. He looked younger than before, dressed in a plain light blue robe, with thick eyebrows and big eyes. With folded hands, he walked calmly along the streets. There was no longer the radiant aura of the past. Now he was understated. He resembled a young monk. After making a round, it was time to greet Tongtian Buddha. Jian Wushuang's figure flickered, directly entering the small city. He had timed it perfectly, arriving early at a roadside stall. In the early morning, the stall owner was shouting about white porridge, spicy dishes, and steamed buns. Although it was a small city frequented by cultivators, most of the residents were still warriors. They hadn't reached the level of fasting, so there were still worldly foods available. Jian Wushuang found a spot by the street and loudly ordered 2 bowls of porridge, for steamed buns, 2 meat, 2 vegetarian. One aspect of this place that Jian Wushuang admired was that Tongtian Buddha had not simply copied his own Buddhist practices here. People still could kill each other. So there were meat buns. The stall owner carried 2 steaming bowls of white porridge and walked over with small steps. "Young master, your porridge is here, and the buns will be served to you immediately." After placing the white porridge down, he was somewhat curious why Jian Wushuang, alone, ordered 2 servings of white porridge. Though curious, he didn't dwell on it too much. Instead, he turned to lift the steamer lid and fetched the buns. Jian Wushuang casually picked up a pair of chopsticks. There were complimentary spicy pickles on the table, and he ate the porridge with the pickles. It had been many years since he had done such a thing. With just a sip, he felt warmth spreading throughout his body. Leisurely sipping his porridge, he quietly awaited Tongtian Buddha's passing. In just a few breaths, counting the steps, Tongtian Buddha arrived. Tongtian. Jian Wushuang set down his chopsticks, not turning his head, sitting upright at the table, his lips moving slightly as he muttered the name, Tongtian. In the bustling street, hardly anyone could hear. Unless they were deeply cultivated practitioners, obviously, there were no such powerful individuals passing through so early in the morning. Only Tongtian Buddha heard those 2 words. It made his expression change, freezing him in place. In the entire city, no movement escaped his mental perception. Hearing someone utter his title, he immediately became nervous. Turning his head to locate the source of the sound, he saw a stranger's figure. Even if it were a dog inside Water Moon Cave, he would recognize it. The moment he saw the unfamiliar figure, he knew the newcomer was extraordinary. Definitely not a life from within Water Moon Cave. But he cultivated within Water Moon Cave, and by Divine Mountain had long sealed off this place. With only him here, how could there be outsiders coming in? Thinking of this, he felt a stir in his heart and stepped towards that figure. Approaching the table, he still couldn't believe his intuition. "Have a seat." Jian Wushuang didn't turn his head, but pointed to the seat across from him, where a bowl of porridge was placed. Tong Tian Buddha walked hesitantly to the opposite side. After seeing the familiar face, he sat down abruptly. Full of disbelief, he said, "Jian Wushuang." His eyelids trembled, unable to believe that the person before him was Jian Wushuang, who had entered Ancient Moon's space-time with him. "Drink the porridge first. It won't taste good when it's cold." Jian Wushuang buried his head in his porridge, not saying much. Tong Tian Buddha suppressed his surprised expression, picked up a pair of chopsticks, but still didn't start eating. At this moment, the stall owner approached with a basket of buns and set it down, reminding them, "The ones on the left are vegetarian, the ones on the right are meat-filled. Enjoy your meal." But when he saw the monk sitting across from Jian Wushuang, he froze. "Master Tong Tong." Clearly, he recognized Tong Tian Buddha. The mere mention of the name, Tong Tong, made Jian Wushuang burst into laughter, almost choking on his porridge. He couldn't believe that the revered Tong Tian Buddha, surrounded by a halo of Buddha light, was referred to as Tong Tong here. Virtuous. Tong Tian Buddha clasped his hands together towards the stall owner and silently uttered a phrase. The stall owner, noticing the dark circles under Tong Tian Buddha's eyes, casually remarked, "Tong Tong, are you off to Xianxia Tower again?" This remark only fueled Jian Wushuang's laughter. Tong Tian Buddha could only smile wryly, not denying it. The stall owner, after giving a curious glance, ceased further inquiry, but couldn't help but wonder why this Master Tong Tong was so attached to the Xianxia Tower in that alley. Jian Wushuang picked up a meat bun, took a bite, and with a mouth full, muttered, "Master Tong Tong, looks like you're having a good time lately, able to spend nights at places like Xianxia Tower." "Wushuang, how did you find me?" Tong Tian Buddha, lacking any appetite, asked the question that had been on his mind. Knowing that few people were aware of his whereabouts, even on by Divine Mountain, Jian Wushuang's ability to locate him surprised him. Moreover, after so many years, he had planned to actively seek out others, never expecting Jian Wushuang to find him first. For countless years, struggling in the mortal world, Tong Tian Buddha had lost his aura of strength, devoid of the majesty of a universe master, instead appearing like an ordinary person. Even sitting at a roadside stall made him feel awkward. Jian Wushuang finished his bun in a few bites, wiped the grease from the corner of his mouth with his sleeve, then slowly spoke. "Finding you wasn't simple. Someone informed me of your whereabouts, so I came here." Before Tong Tian Buddha could inquire further, Jian Wushuang pointed to the sky and continued, "It was someone who passed on your inheritance." "Ah, I see." Tong Tian Buddha blinked, realizing that was the only possibility. Seeing Jian Wushuang's restrained aura, he knew the other party must be stronger than him. Among the top 10 inheritors, even the first to fall, Fan Tianfeng, was stronger than the current Tong Tian Buddha. Back in Qishan Temple, Tong Tian Buddha's talent actually surpassed Jin Wuyang and the others. He was one of the top inheritors in the entire original universe. But now, he was just an ordinary universe master in the third tribulation realm. Above Water Moon Cave, Tong Tian Buddha's origin source universe was hidden. Internally, it was desolate. Apparently, he hadn't cultivated his origin source for a long time. His divine power was ordinary, only around 200,000. Tong Tian Buddha felt a bit embarrassed, awkwardly smiling. "These years, I've been trapped in the trial of this inheritance, neglecting my cultivation. Seeing his calm demeanor, Jian Wushuang admired him a bit. Being surpassed by everyone else but remaining so indifferent showed an exceptionally high level of character. But what did that matter? Could it put food on the table? Could it defeat those in the seventh tribulation realm? Could a universe master still be trapped by the mortal world? Jian Wushuang sighed. Do you need help? No, I'm close to success. Tongtian Buddha's expression changed as he began to recount his current achievements. Almost the entire water moon cave had been converted. Countless people had been influenced by him. This influence wasn't due to strength but rather Tongtian Buddha's words and deeds over the years. Since entering Water Moon Cave, he had completely abolished his own power, even traveling the entire place on a donkey. That donkey must have been exhausted from carrying him around. Just the time spent traveling probably amounted to 100,000 eras. But his efforts were not in vain. He was close to success. Now only 3 people in Water Moon Cave remained unaffected. These 3 were still unconverted. And they were all in this small city. Tongtian Buddha had stayed in the small city for 10 years, all for these 3 people. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang became interested. With a mental flick, he sensed the locations and auras of the 3 individuals through causality. They were all ordinary people with low martial cultivation. Calling them cultivators would be an insult. According to the information in causality, these 3 hadn't done anything particularly egregious. They were just petty criminals. Actually, it wasn't worth Tongtian Buddha's time to be here. Thief, prostitute, robber. The combined strength of these 3 wasn't even a match for Jian Wushuang's breath. But Tongtian Buddha shook his head. It's not that simple. Over these years, I've observed that the fortunes of these 3 are exceptionally strong. They're no ordinary people. There must be some powerful figure who has arranged something special against me. We mustn't act recklessly. He had become somewhat numb to it all now, seeing complexity in everything. With just these 3, Jian Wushuang could have dealt with them with a bit of time. But he was somewhat skeptical. With a casual gesture, time around them began to accelerate. Jian Wushuang stood up, observing the changes around him. With a flick of his hand, time froze, and he and Tongtian Buddha found the thief. The thief was in the act of stealing lambs from a farmhouse. Some things don't need my intervention. It's quite simple, really. If he wants to steal sheep, just turn him into one and be done with it. After all, he's just a mortal, living a few hundred years at most. While you can still break free from this, the thief didn't steal sheep out of choice but out of not knowing how to obtain one through legitimate means. Now, Jian Wushuang was about to teach him a way to acquire a lamb. With a divine power, he directly altered the thief's physique, allowing him to rise to the ranks of a martial arts expert. No longer would he need to steal for a single sheep. Tongtian Buddha stood by, watching without intervening, nor did he heed Jian Wushuang's words. Initially, they thought they had dealt with the problem, but soon Jian Wushuang felt some regret. After becoming a martial arts expert, the thief not only didn't abandon his thieving habits, but intensified them. From stealing, he progressed to robbery and even murder. It wasn't as simple as they thought. Minor changes could amplify the evil in one's heart infinitely. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang once again altered time, this time to a roadside stall. Even the porridge on the table emitted steam. Wushuang, I've told you this is a test from some powerful figure. It's not as simple as you think. Tongtian Buddha chuckled in triumph. But Jian Wushuang was still stubborn, feeling that if he couldn't change even Immortal, he had reason to doubt. With a flash of body and mind, when he reappeared, there were bloody hands on the table. Since teaching to fish didn't work, he would just cut off the head of the ringleader of evil deeds and see what the consequences would be. Tongtian Buddha clasped his hands together, silently chanting, "Virtuous! This is true virtue." Peering into the karma, they found that the thief had indeed stopped stealing because the people in the small town were kind, and the thief met a good end. It was a beautiful ending. Then came the second one, the prostitute. This was also why Tongtian Buddha was mocked as the main culprit behind the scenes in the alley of fireworks and willows. Prostitution wasn't inherently evil in this world, but the deeds of this prostitute were extreme. And extreme was evil. Every one of her clients ended up with broken families because of her. Jian Wushuang with Tongtian Buddha found the prostitute. Instead of teaching her to fish, they sought punishment. The prostitute had a bewitching appearance, truly a scourge. This time, the punishment was simple. They directly disfigured her face. Her appearance became ugly, her skin starting to rot. This was the punishment for wrongdoing. Jian Wushuang was unlike Tongtian Buddha. He wouldn't give these people too many chances. Tongtian Buddha shook his head disapprovingly. The courtesans lost her beauty, and her business plummeted. Though the red light district was ruthless, it still harbored the world's compassion. The courtesan, having lost her patrons, didn't starve to death. Instead, her became servants in the brothels, securing their well-being in old age. The last one, a bandit. This time, Jian Wushuang didn't waste words. He swiftly dealt with the opponent's life. With a single action, he transformed the entire world into a paradise as imagined by ordinary people. Pure and without impurities. Everything's settled now. Your test is over. Jian Wushuang clapped his hands, indicating that everything was sorted out. But Tongtian Buddha continued to shake his head, sighing. The world may have changed for the better, but my heart remains unchanged. Your understanding is still lacking. Ultimately, you only sought to become stronger for yourself, thus changing them. Tongtian, you lack love in your heart. At that moment, Jian Wushuang directly exposed Tongtian Buddha's innermost thoughts. Jian Wushuang, seemingly carefree, was actually astute. Cutting off the thief's hand, messing up the courtesan's face, killing the bandit. It was all a facade, all for this moment. Tongtian Buddha, initially serene, now had a drastically changed expression, his state of mind shaken. Years of effort were destroyed by Jian Wushuang's words. No! Tongtian Buddha plunged into darkness, unwilling to acknowledge the darkness within his heart. Deprived of the Buddha's radiance, he transformed completely into a flame of darkness. Jian Wushuang shook his head in dismay. Wuxia was right about you. You're truly trapped. Water Moon Cave was just a facade. All talk of enlightening sentient beings was a lie. Or rather, it was a lie to Tongtian Buddha. This was the brilliance of Realm King. In reality, the only one who needed enlightenment was Tongtian Buddha himself. The entire Water Moon Cave was an illusion. Jian Wushuang saw through it with a single point. This place was not a hidden paradise but an infernal abyss. The territory of By Divine Mountain. Tongtian Buddha hadn't participated in By Divine Mountain's trial at all. Instead, he had made a grave mistake, falling into hell and being punished there all along. This was why no one outside paid attention to him. When hell manifested, even By Divine Mountain trembled. Tongtian Buddha's previously bald head even grew long hair. With hair cascading down and eyes shrouded in darkness, his transformed heart remained selfish. From Buddha to Demon Lord. As By Divine Mountain shook, soon, a universe master of the seventh tribulation descended to investigate. Wu Tian. Upon seeing Tongtian Buddha, the universe master of the seventh tribulation from By Divine Mountain exclaimed, preparing to suppress him. At this moment, Jian Wushuang was no longer concealed, fully exposed. With a single palm, he directly pushed away the universe master of the seventh tribulation, causing no harm. Boom! After being pushed away, the universe master was extremely surprised. Upon seeing Jian Wushuang's face, he was stunned. Jian Wushuang, don't bother him. Any losses will be mine. Jian Wushuang crossed his arms, standing in the void, observing Tongtian Buddha's transformation. Tongtian, Wu Tian. The changes were indeed significant, and the change in strength was even greater. As long as Tongtian Buddha was willing to abandon his former hypocrisy and become a true demon, it was possible to leap over the seventh tribulation. This was the opportunity given to him by Realm King. Opportunity belonged to everyone, and everyone was equal. The opportunities for each of them, 10 in total, were actually quite similar. It depended on how they seized them. Tongtian Buddha, or rather Wutian, the heaven of the infernal abyss. At this moment, he was struggling with the last shred of consciousness in his heart. As long as this consciousness was erased, he could successfully transform. It was uncertain whether the other party would recognize him when the time came. Did Realm King already know that someone would come to expose him? Jian Wushuang sighed deeply, quietly waiting for the other party's reaction. But curiosity lingered in his heart. Most likely, even if he didn't come, Wuzhua would, to expose the illusion and unleash the true Wutian demon lord. As he pondered these thoughts, the current master of By Divine Mountain beside him began to feel restless. The Nether Hell was the pinnacle treasure of By Divine Mountain, completely integrated with it. Now that outsiders had intruded, this was a big deal. He first informed the ancestral patriarch of the Bai family. Then, feeling uneasy, he also informed the senior sister of the Ancient Moon sect. That senior sister was also the emperor of the Ancient Moon sect. The ancestral patriarch of the Bai family, knowing that Jian Wushuang was on his Bai Divine Mountain, was initially chatting with the people from the Ancient Wood sect and Divine Wood King. Suddenly, he couldn't sit still. Fortunately, through Divine Wood King, he learned from Jian Wushuang that it was for one person. Only then did he feel relieved. After Divine Wood King's encounter with them in the Wanlu, his favor towards Jian Wushuang greatly increased. Moreover, they were all close friends who had experienced life and death together. So he also persuaded him on the side. Brother Bai, I'm not criticizing you. If Wushuang can find someone on your Bai Divine Mountain, it's your good fortune. You want the power of life, right? Now let's go to the primordial white heaven. With my face, it's a piece of cake for you to exchange for the power of life. If that's the case, then I'll trouble you, Brother Divine Wood. The ancestral patriarch of the Bai family finally reacted and hurriedly smiled, taking out the flying treasure directly. Such matters couldn't be delayed. They wanted to leave immediately. Seeing the flying treasure of the other party, Divine Wood King's eyes flickered, sighing. Brother Bai, you've had a good time these years. I've been wanting to get a flying treasure of the 8th Tribulation Realm for so long, but I just haven't had the chance. Sigh. The ancestral patriarch of the Bai family had known Divine Wood King for so many years. How could he not know what the other was thinking? Immediately, he took out the origin source from the flying treasure and handed it directly to Divine Wood King. What am I? Just a little treasure. What's the big deal? Brother Divine Wood, just take it. If you need anything in the future, just say it. In the entire ancient moon spacetime, isn't it still us old folks who call the shots? His daughter was the emperor of the ancient moon sect. In the entire ancient moon spacetime, they truly had the upper hand. When the incarnation of which Heavenly Maiden was completely destroyed, the entire ancient moon spacetime began to recover. In the future, the world would truly belong to them. Divine Wood King felt a bit embarrassed, but, thick-skinned as he was, he accepted it and his expression brightened. Personally controlling the flying treasure, he headed towards the primordial white heaven. At this moment, the ancient moon pope also arrived at the Bai Divine Mountain. However, he concealed his figure in the void, intending to pay his respects only after Jian Wushuang came out. But before long, he sensed the aura of the Divine Wood King and his own father. So he also emerged from the void. Upon meeting each other without speaking, they understood each other's thoughts. The path of resurrection was about to begin. There were many scattered tribulations with great potential, all on the verge of perishing, waiting for the power of life. Apart from Danbao, in the entire northern spacetime, only Jian Wushuang had a continuous supply of life force. Once Jian Wushuang appeared, it would attract countless strong individuals. Of course, not to besiege Jian Wushuang, but sincerely to exchange. No matter how high the price, there was no complaint. But Jian Wushuang didn't demand exorbitant prices either, just sticking to the usual rates. Even at this price, he made quite a profit. In a previous exchange in the ancient Wood continent, he obtained numerous treasures. However, there were too few origin source treasures. Although he acquired quite a few, lighting up the second and even third universe this time depleted his resources. Only some primordial stones were left, and he was reluctant to use them. Maintaining the origin source universe incurred considerable expenses. His universe was incredibly vast, requiring a large amount of primordial stones. The infinite power of the starry sky also required an infinite supply of primordial stones to sustain it. Those powers didn't come out of thin air. It's just that his reserves were relatively abundant. Just like the power of life, converting it required the power of all things. And the power of myriad things required devouring the treasures nurtured by heaven and earth. In summary, Jian Wushuang's life force could be converted from cabbage, but it was definitely not at cabbage prices. Who made him the sole owner of the entire northern spacetime. Deep in the abyssal hell, after settling the divine with King, Jian Wushuang hadn't really thought about the power of life. Anyway, he currently lacked some treasures, and he could cooperate with the other party to exchange some later. In the Tiansong Eternal Realm, all the exchanged treasures were given to Wuxia. It just happened to make a deal with the ancient moon spacetime and the Bai family. He didn't like dealing with those wandering cultivators, as it was troublesome dealing with small quantities. The life or death of those scattered tribulations had nothing to do with him. He would rescue or, let's say, donate when he saw them, but he wouldn't deliberately do so. The moral golden light obtained from exchanges was of little use. Karmic forces or golden lights, it was the same. Just like Tongtian Buddha now, facing one's own heart was the right approach. Done! Jian Wushuang's eyes flickered as he stared at the no longer struggling Wutian demon lord, the former Tongtian Buddha. He was sitting cross-legged by a black river, his face somewhat haggard. But his origin source had already ascended several levels. Jian Wushuang looked dazzlingly, able to sense the aura of the seventh tribulation realm, and the divine power was extremely violent. At least a basic divine power of 2 million. And Wutian Demon Lord's origin source was within his body, which means the origin source universe had entered the divine body. This was something only those of the 8th tribulation could achieve. Originally, only Jian Wushuang and Wuxia could do it, but now Tongtian Buddha had also achieved it, so his strength should be not weaker than Wu's was. Another powerful ally. There was still no news of Hu Qing for now, but it shouldn't be too bad. This added a lot of confidence to him in dealing with Mieshang. Whoosh! Feeling the opponent's aura stabilize, Jian Wushuang flew over actively. Tongtian? Wutian. Tongtian is already dead. Wutian sneered. You chose it, Jian Wushuang. This statement was not wrong at all. Jian Wushuang indeed shattered Tongtian Buddha's state of mind, leading him to fall completely into the demonic path. Seemingly extreme, Jian Wushuang's actions were actually a reflection of Tongtian Buddha's inherently extreme nature. Changing a world to the extreme. There was only goodness, no evil. Then where does goodness come from? Punishing evil and promoting goodness. Without evil to punish, the entire world seemed to become good. But in fact, this world had become a great evil. Evil towards whom? Evil towards goodness. There's an interesting book among the mundane world called the Diamond Sutra. Its description of goodness could be said to be profoundly simple. The existence of evil was just to set off greater goodness. Wutian, that's a good name. Once Tongtian, now Wutian. You really have quite a lot of grievances with heaven. Jian Wushuang joked to ease the atmosphere. Only Wutian now wasn't in the mood to listen to Jian Wushuang's banter. Rising from the ruins, Wutian had achieved a new height, freed from past constraints, though the memories lingered. He knew why Jian Wushuang had come, to return to Qishan Temple. Jian Wushuang, I have no interest in Qishan Temple anymore. You've come to the wrong place. Wutian rose, his aura surging. A terrifying presence swept all, shaking the entire nether hell. This nether hell itself was a treasure of the pinnacle of the 8th tribulation realm, born with the extraordinary enlightenment of Realm King. But now, this nether hell began to merge with Wutian's origin source universe. The entire nether hell became his Tao arena. The aura was immensely majestic. The universe master of the 7th tribulation realm from the Bai Divine Mountain felt a bit panicked. This was there by Divine Mountain's treasure, now fallen into Wutian's hands. Initially, Tongtian Buddha came to Bai Divine Mountain because of mistakenly killing a saint of Bai Divine Mountain, hence suppressed in this nether hell. But what happened back then wasn't entirely Tongtian Buddha's fault. Speaking of which, Tongtian Buddha punished evil and promoted good by killing that saint of the Bai family, who was also the descendant of the universe master of the seventh tribulation realm. As the overlords of the primordial white heaven, the Bai family couldn't swallow this humiliation and immediately had Tongtian Buddha suppressed. The name Tongtian Buddha used back then was Wutian. To uphold its own reputation, Bai Divine Mountain didn't directly kill Tongtian Buddha, but suppressed him under the pretext of cleansing, achieving the present Wutian. But unexpectedly, the stolen chicken wasn't worth losing the rice. The nether hell was forcibly merged into Wutian's origin source universe. After passing through 4 tribulations consecutively, Wutian reached the level of the universe master of the 7th tribulation realm. With a mere movement, he could annihilate the universe master of the 7th tribulation realm from Bai Divine Mountain. Even if the ancestors of Bai Divine Mountain came, they were no match for him. The 19 sealed king powerhouses all appeared extremely old, barely sustaining themselves. Only Divine Wood King was lucky enough to recover to his peak, while the other sealed king powerhouses, though they had gained considerable life force, were still far from their peaks. Without the luck of Divine Wood King, not only would they have not reached their peak, but they wouldn't have advanced to the perfection of the 8th tribulation realm. They had also formed a good relationship with the god of life. In the future, their path to reincarnation would undoubtedly be at the forefront. The ancestor is outside. Jian Wushuang, take me away quickly. Please have the ancestor suppress Wutian. The space here had been sealed off. No universe master of the 7th tribulation realm could leave. They could only hope Jian Wushuang would take them away. But Jian Wushuang was indifferent, saying calmly, "Everything lost by Divine Mountain is my doing. The rest has nothing to do with you." Now he was entitled to say this. What did it matter to acquire this nether hell? It was nothing more than a matter of life force. But when a universe master at the 7th tribulation hesitated, he transmitted a message to the patriarch. Expecting a scolding, he was surprised when the patriarch not only didn't get angry but became excited, informing him that everything could be sold to Jian Wushuang. As long as he produced the life force, everything was worth it. Jian Wushuang was extremely generous about this, not being stingy at all. After all, these treasures would ultimately fall into his hands. Though Wutian claimed to be uninterested in Qixin Temple, as Tongtian Buddha after his transformation into the demonic path, he had become Wutian, with a drastically changed personality. Normal people might not trust each other, but Jian Wushuang did. He could tell that Wutian still had an attachment to Qixin Temple, and he had just helped him out a big favor. Otherwise, he would still be trapped in Water Moon Cave. Demon. That was the demon of the righteous path. It had nothing to do with Jian Wushuang. And the demonic path was not inhabited solely by irrational monsters. It wasn't as terrifying as it seemed. Someone like Qi Zhouxiao belonged to the demonic path, a powerful and terrifying puppet. Wutian was the real demon. You've changed a lot, but don't forget where you came from. And especially don't forget who gave you everything. Jian Wushuang stepped onto the Black River, his aura trembling. Upon hearing this, Wutian laughed arrogantly. That depends on whether you have the qualifications. Buzz. Instantly, his aura surged, the power within the nether hell gathering around Wutian. Divine power skyrocketing from 2 million to 3 million. The speed of it startled Jian Wushuang. 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. It finally slowed down after reaching 5 million. It was almost on par with Wuxia. With the blessing of the nether hell and the nether secret technique taught by Realm King, it was normal for the amplification to reach this level. The stronger Wutian became, the more advantageous it was for Jian Wushuang. Now, are you satisfied with me? Wutian laughed wildly, demonic flames rising with every movement. Jian Wushuang drew his sword, a gesture he would make to every inheritor of Qixin Temple. It was a sign of respect, not treating them as insignificant. Clang! The Wanjia sword emerged, dispersing the demonic flames around, the faint blue stellar power killing all worldly beings. A sword determines the winner. If I lose, consider it repaying your favor and erasing everything that happened. If you lose, You must return to Qixin Temple with me. Jian Wushuang's tone was stern. After drawing his sword, he had also changed somewhat, with the killing intent of the sword path surging within him. The desire for battle was rising. At this moment, Wu Tian was also extremely shocked by Jian Wushuang's state after drawing his sword. Without answering, he just nodded slightly. After the transformation, his personality naturally changed, becoming somewhat arrogant, unwilling to face reality. The demonic flames turned into a huge savage beast, demonic light soaring into the sky. The demonic flames all around transformed into terrifying demonic beasts from within the nether hell, charging towards Jian Wushuang. It was the fear of everyone. But Jian Wushuang just closed his eyes slightly, seamlessly merging into the super-eternal ancient transformation. Divine power bursting forth, allowing Wu Tian to see how powerful Jian Wushuang truly was. Sixth tribulation? Wu Tian could hardly believe it. It wasn't that he didn't believe in Jian Wushuang's divine power, but that he couldn't believe Jian Wushuang would be a universe master at the sixth tribulation realm. How could his realm be lower than his? In fact, many people were astonished at why Jian Wushuang's realm was so low. Many people realized it only after the fact. The realm itself carried divine power that didn't belong to this realm, so it must have had something extraordinary. This principle was quite simple. It's just that Wu Tian's memories inherited from Tongtian Buddha revealed how terrifying Jian Wushuang's potential was. Back when he was still the emperor, he had suppressed everyone. In their understanding, they had firmly believed that Jian Wushuang's realm would surpass their own. Even though Wu Tian had just gained the inheritance and risen rapidly, he still held this belief. TSK, I didn't expect you to be just a universe master at the sixth tribulation level. Don't blame me for bullying the weak. Wu Tian's expression was somewhat ferocious as he roared. Nether hell! This was his Dao arena, and fighting him here, even an eighth tribulation realm expert wouldn't faze him. In the chaos of hell, this was Wu Tian's world, and he circled Jian Wushuang with abandon. Everything around them was under his control. Jian Wushuang, however, kept his eyes tightly shut, holding the Wanjie sword in reverse. He waited for the right moment to strike. He still wanted Wu Tian to make the first move, to avoid any dissatisfaction from his opponent later. But as he waited and waited, an impatience grew within him. His eyebrows twitched naturally. This gave Wu Tian an opportunity. The demonic path was most adept at manipulating hearts. Everything that had just happened was his trap. In his view, Jian Wushuang had fallen for it. Infinite tribulation. Wu Tian clasped his hands together, embodying both the demon and the saint. His form multiplied into thousands, rushing towards Jian Wushuang with demonic flames. Countless ghosts condensed into a demon-subduing staff. In the nether hell, Wu Tian was a god, not a demon. The enemy was the demon. The purpose of the nether hell was to obliterate all demons. You overthink things. Jian Wushuang's lips curved upward. Indeed, he had been somewhat impatient just now, but not because of Wu Tian's trap. It was simply his nature. The demon-subduing staff descended from the sky. Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes and lightly swung his sword, uttering only one word, life. Buzz. The shadow of the sword, initially a faint image, instantly transformed into a cosmos, as terrifying as a stretch of spacetime. This was the sword of life, containing the true meaning of spacetime. A long river of spacetime swept forth, capable of obliterating not just a hell, but an entire universe. Yet this sword, paradoxically, held the hope of life. Wu Tian felt an unprecedented terror, one that struck directly at his soul. The light blue power of the starry sky instantly extinguished his demonic flames. The immensely powerful demon-subduing staff shattered the moment it touched the sword shadow. One sword strike broke his infinite tribulation. His divine body felt a sense of powerlessness, and his form retreated continuously. Blood seeped from the corner of his mouth as the violent backlash began to fracture his divine body. At that moment, he thought of his own downfall. Had he just risen only to fall now? Wu Tian, despite his unwillingness, still maintained the dignity of a demon lord. Not the slightest bit of fear. He forcefully suppressed the backlash and steadied himself. On Jian Wushuang's side, he calmly sheathed his Wanjie sword. The hope of life is truly miraculous. With a gentle flick of his finger, time and space returned to tranquility. The strike from earlier was retracted back into his body, and the demon-subduing staff returned to its original state. But Wu Tian's injuries did not disappear. Jian Wushuang could have done this as well, but out of respect for the other's dignity, he chose not to. Wu Tian, you must keep your promise. Wu Tian raised his head slightly, his voice low. You indeed did not disappoint me. Did you go directly to the Realm God continent after obtaining the Realm God token? He couldn't comprehend why Jian Wushuang, a universe master of the Sixth Tribulation, was so powerful and instinctively thought of the Realm God continent. It was only after he had just received that token and the introduction to the Realm God continent that he understood that the 9 core spacetimes were merely subsidiary spacetimes outside the starry sky. Similarly, there were 3 other subsidiary spacetimes. Above the 4 great subsidiary spacetimes, there existed the Realm God continent. Only with the Realm God token given by the Realm King could they go to the Realm God continent. Well, Jian Wushuang touched the back of his head, somewhat embarrassed. He hadn't actually been to the Realm God continent, and the Realm God token had been used to repair the pyramid. Seeing his hesitation, Wu Tian didn't press further. After a shift in demeanor, he became extremely reserved. Forget it, I'll explain it to you later. We still have a long time together. He was also embarrassed to explain, but he needed to resolve the matter of the Realm God token sooner rather than later. Everyone was heading for the Realm God continent. His biggest goal at the moment, aside from dealing with Mieshang, was to consider the future. The two engaged in awkward small talk, but they ignored the universe master of the Seventh Tribulation's realm from by Divine Mountain. At this moment, the latter was trembling in a corner of the nether hell. The recent battle between the two, no matter which side, either could crush him easily. How could he not be terrified? Especially of Jian Wushuang. He looked at him as if he were a monster. A Sixth Tribulation realm so powerful. If not for the obvious Cultivation realm, he would believe Jian Wushuang to be an Eighth Tribulation universe master. I almost forgot about you. The conversation with Wu Tian was dull. The other had changed and become very reserved. Shifting the topic, Jian Wushuang looked at the universe master of the Seventh Tribulation from by Divine Mountain. Friend from by Divine Mountain, estimate the losses here, including this endless nether hell, and the psychological impact on you. Calculate how much life force it would take to buy all of this. Well, he found it difficult to ask. After a moment's hesitation, Friend Wushuang, I cannot decide on this matter. The ancestors are waiting for you outside. How about letting them decide? Jian Wushuang's divine sense slightly extended, and he detected 3 Eighth Tribulation auras, one of which was very familiar and incredibly powerful, beyond his capability. Divine Wood King. There was also another presence, relatively weak, with divine power reduced to about 5 million, and an aura very similar to that of the Universe Master in front of him. It was highly likely to be the ancestor of the Bai family. The last presence was the strongest of them all. Even the most powerful being in ancient moon spacetime, an Eighth Tribulation Universe Master, hailing from the Bai family, stationed in the Ancient Moon Sect. The current Pope of the Ancient Moon Sect. Jian Wushuang couldn't even see through the depths of his power, which was at least 15 million. It's really lively here. Jian Wushuang casually tore apart the nether hell, wrapped Wu Tian and the Universe Master with a thought, and left the place immediately. Before leaving, Wu Tian naturally retracted the nether hell. Swish! The figures of the 3 flashed and arrived in the clouds of by Divine Mountain. Divine Wood King, who had been reminiscing with the Pope of the Ancient Moon Sect, immediately stood up from the tea table upon seeing Jian Wushuang bring people in, and hurriedly greeted, Brother Wushuang, you didn't even give us a heads up before coming back. That's not very considerate. The ancestor of the Bai family and the Pope of the Ancient Moon Sect also rose to their feet. They treated Jian Wushuang as an equal, even 1 level higher. Especially the ancestor of the Bai family, who bypassed Divine Wood King, his face full of smiles, showing no anger at Jian Wushuang's intrusion into his Bai Divine Mountain, but rather some flattery. I've long heard of the famed Jian Wushuang. Seeing you in person, it's truly better than 100 stories. A hero indeed emerges in youth. It's just a minor matter. I heard that Brother Divine Wood was rebuilding the ancient Wood sect, so I didn't want to disturb him. Jian Wushuang lightly responded to Divine Wood King, then looked at the ancestor of the Bai family with an apologetic smile. I'm sorry for the trouble I've caused by coming to Bai Divine Mountain this time. This visit to Bai Divine Mountain indeed caused quite a bit of trouble. Fellow Taoist Wushuang, please don't say that. Divine Wood King and I have always regarded each other as brothers. If you call me senior, it truly embarrasses this old man. If you don't mind, just call me Brother Bai. I am only slightly older than you, Brother Wushuang. In the future, this might be the only advantage I have over you. The ancestor of the Bai family spoke with extreme politeness, showering Jian Wushuang with flattery. Divine Wood King, upon hearing the Bai family ancestor's words, couldn't help but scoff inwardly. Back when he had yet to reveal his true strength, this old man wouldn't even spare him a proper glance. Whenever they met, he would always hold his nose high. He feared that others wouldn't know that the current pope of ancient moon spacetime was his daughter. Now that he had revealed his power and was one of the top figures in ancient moon spacetime, with a connection to the god of life, the Bai family ancestor was willing to call him Brother Divine Wood. Everything still boiled down to strength. Jian Wushuang naturally understood this principle and knew why the other party was being so courteous. After a few polite exchanges, he brought up the matter of compensation and proposed a trade with Bai Divine Mountain, and even with the ancient moon god sect. Origin source treasures? The Bai family ancestor, who had just sat down and started making tea, asked in surprise, Brother Wushuang, how much do you need? The Pope of ancient moon spacetime sat to the side without speaking. The Bai family ancestor had already discussed it with the Pope of ancient moon spacetime. If Jian Wushuang's demand for origin source treasures was not excessive, then Bai Divine Mountain would handle it. If Bai Divine Mountain couldn't meet the demand, the ancient moon god sect would step in. Divine Wood King wasn't interested in this matter. He had acquired a vast amount of life force, enough to share with some juniors and friends, and still had a huge reserve left. Around this amount, Jian Wushuang said, holding up 3 fingers. The Bai family ancestor, seeing this, asked, 300 million primordial stones? This quantity was just manageable for their Bai family. After countless years of accumulation, they had enough. The best origin source treasure was primordial stones. If primordial stones weren't enough, they could use some origin source treasures to make up the difference. No. Jian Wushuang shook his head and then stated a number that would drive anyone mad. 30 billion. I need 30 billion primordial stones. If primordial stones are not enough, then origin source treasures will do. If origin source treasures are still not enough, then treasures of all kinds. If even treasures of all kinds are not enough, then... Before Jian Wushuang could finish speaking, the Pope of the Ancient Moon personally poured tea for him, speaking in a steady tone. Our Ancient Moon sect will accept. Good. The Pope is indeed magnanimous. Jian Wushuang praised. This amount of transaction. Aside from the 3 eternal realms, it seemed only the Ancient Moon sect could afford it. The 3 eternal realms did not have a single dominant entity. Among the 9 spacetimes, only the Ancient Moon spacetime was entirely dominated by the Ancient Moon sect. They controlled everything. Transaction time? The Pope of the Ancient Moon asked about the matter of utmost importance to her. That was the time. In fact, no matter how much time was needed, it was bearable. The main thing was to see Jian Wushuang's sincerity. When the time came, one hand would deliver the power of life, and the other would provide the primordial stones. Jian Wushuang rubbed his chin and calmly said, 100,000 years. In 100,000 years, I will produce 330 billion worth of life power. Agreed. But, at this moment, Jian Wushuang's brow moved, and his tone changed slightly. I need the Ancient Moon sect to provide 300 million primordial stones in advance. This was his startup capital. In a span of 100,000 years, it would not be possible to convert such a massive amount of life power. He also needed to create a space with a slow flow of time at least 10,000 times slower, and it had to be extremely stable. More importantly, his life power did not come out of thin air. It required a large amount of the power of all things. Although the power of all things was easy to obtain, he couldn't possibly devour the origin source universes of cultivators. Therefore, he needed 300 million primordial stones to continuously create life power. In fact, 100 million would be enough. But his third universe still required a considerable amount of primordial stones to stabilize the three universes and connect them in a line. A massive amount of primordial stones was needed. Now, the path of resurrection had not yet appeared, and his life power still had value. Once the path of resurrection emerged, or he went to the realm god continent, life power would no longer be worth much. He needed to make a few more gains quickly. 300 million was not a small number, and the Pope of the ancient moon could not afford to be careless, so she set a precise time. But providing 300 million in advance was something she could decide on her own. If it was 300 billion, she wouldn't be able to come up with it alone. Even returning to the ancient moon spacetime, she would have to consult with the elders to make calculations. But 300 million as a deposit was not a problem for her. She immediately took out 300 million primordial stones. This time she had brought quite a few with her. The reason she could part with them so readily was her trust in Jian Wushuang. After all, he possessed the power of life and had made a great name for himself in the Wanlu divine realm. He wouldn't run away over 300 million primordial stones. After receiving the primordial stones, Jian Wushuang felt more confident. This time, he would light up the third universe in one go. As for the tribulation, he could take his time. It wouldn't be too late to undergo it on the way back. The Bai family patriarch watched as the 300 million primordial stones fell into Jian Wushuang's hands so effortlessly, feeling a bit emotional. Comparing it with his own possessions, he instantly felt they were too small. "Don't worry, brother Bai. I'll also take care of your share and deliver it in 10,000 years. Seeing the other party's concern, Jian Wushuang did not hold back. A bit more or less didn't make much difference. Moreover, compared to his previous exchanges on the ancient Wood continent, 300 million was an astronomical figure. Back then, it was small families and forces he was dealing with, incomparable to the Bai family of the primordial White Heaven. Once the deal was settled, everyone didn't want to delay Jian Wushuang's time any longer. After some brief pleasantries, they all took their leave. Divine Wood King and the ancient Moon Pope also left. Only the Bai family patriarch remained. After finding a prime location for Jian Wushuang, he also hurriedly took his leave. As for Wu Tian, originally a prisoner suppressed by the Bai family, in deference to Jian Wushuang, he was treated as if nothing had happened, with good food and drink fully provided. Before closing his retreat, Jian Wushuang reminded Wu Tian not to act rashly. At most, in 10,000 years they would leave the primordial White Heaven. Wu Zhua and the others, heading to the Azure Sea spacetime, had also smoothly found Gu Qianluo. Soon they would reach the ancient moon spacetime and rendezvous with them. The last person was Hu Qing. At that time, they would need the Realm King to personally search for his whereabouts. Once Hu Qing was found, it would be time for them to leave the upper stream of the spacetime river. Returning to Qishan Temple, it was getting closer and closer. A 10,000-year retreat for Jian Wushuang felt like 10 eons. Because of the accelerated time, this incredibly long period surpassed the time he had spent cultivating. In the beginning, it was manageable as he lit up the third universe. This was still considered cultivation, and then it was about connecting the three universes to become one. A rudimentary form of the spacetime river had already taken shape. It was also the foundation. The issue of crossing the seventh tribulation was completely resolved after connecting to the universe. All that remained was to bring down the Great Tribulation. However, he didn't have the time to do it now. Instead, he turned his attention to creating the power of life. For 10 eras, he repeated the same task over and over. The monotony was driving Jian Wushuang insane. His mind and spirit were exhausted. Time seemed to pass slowly. Because he had set a deadline, he didn't dare to rest. He continued this monotonous routine for 10 whole eras. Finally, he transformed a sea of life, worth 30 billion primordial stones, more than enough. Jian Wushuang first took out the main portion, then sealed it in a mustard seed. This was for his deal with the ancient moon sect, 30 billion primordial stones worth of life force. It was enough to help dozens of 8 Tribulation Realm experts return to their peak. The revival of all the 8 Tribulation Realm experts within the ancient moon sect was no problem, and it could also keep them continuously fighting, replenishing their vitality. As for the 7 Tribulation Realm experts, even more could be revived. It was up to the ancient moon sect to decide how to proceed. Most forces still placed great importance on the 7 Tribulation Realm experts. Then there were the 6th Tribulation Realm experts, whose numbers were too vast. Moreover, most of the 8th Tribulation experts in the ancient moon sect had families and their own intertwined forces. It was likely that besides restoring themselves, they would also help their families. That number would be even more enormous. 30 billion might actually not be enough. But restoring themselves posed no issues at all. Phew! Jian Wushuang entered an ice spring within his cave dwelling, immersing his entire body comfortably at the bottom of the spring. Both his body and soul were absorbing the power within the spring to nourish themselves. This time he was truly exhausted. He had also felt his limit. After resting for a whole month, he finally emerged from the bottom of the ice spring. With a shake, he evaporated the water droplets from his body, put on a white robe, and walked out of his cave dwelling. The moment he stepped out, the ancestor of the Bai family immediately descended. Clearly, he had been waiting for this day. Not long after, the Pope of ancient moon spacetime also arrived. Brother Wushuang, you've worked hard this time. The Bai family ancestor could hardly contain his excitement, constantly weighing a small mustard seed in his hand. Inside it was the accumulation of the Bai family over the years. Over the past 100,000 years, he had sold off his possessions and gathered 300 million primordial stones. But now, with the life force about to be obtained, those things didn't matter. As long as he didn't sell his innate treasures, he could sell anything else to exchange for life power. With 300 million primordial stones worth of life force, the Bai family ancestor only needed 30% to restore himself to his peak. To be safe, he could keep another 20%, and the remaining half could be used to restore the rest of the scattered tribulation in the family. Although the Bai family only had 2 members at the 8th Tribulation Realm, there were quite a few at the 7th Tribulation Realm. This amount of life force would be enough to fully restore them all. There would even be some left over. At that time, they could sell some at a high price to cover the family's deficits. It was simply a surefire, profitable deal, so naturally, he treated Jian Wushuang with great respect. Jian Wushuang stretched his body. This time, he truly had worked hard, but he still maintained a calm expression. Since everyone is here, let's begin. As he spoke, he took out 2 mustard seeds, handing one to the Bai family ancestor and the other to the Pope of ancient moon spacetime. After inspecting them, their faces first showed shock, then immense joy. Anyone who saw this amount of life force couldn't help but be amazed. Seeing that there was no problem with the life force, the 2 also readily handed the primordial stones to Jian Wushuang. The Pope of ancient moon spacetime had previously given 300 million, leaving 229.7 billion remaining. The Bai family ancestor had 300 million primordial stones. Adding them together made 30 billion. With these primordial stones, even if life force became worthless in the future, Jian Wushuang could still reach the peak of the 8th Tribulation without venturing into secret realms. As for the 9th Tribulation, no one in the northern spacetime had yet achieved it. He didn't know how many primordial stones it required, and even if there were references, his own origin source was different from others, incomparable. For instance, the speed at which his origin source universe nurtured primordial stones was 100 times that of an ordinary universe master. Now, having lit up 3 universes, it had reached an astounding 1,000-fold. A typical universe master at the 6th Tribulation could produce 1,000 primordial stones in one era, and a powerful one might manage 10,000, not counting outsiders like them. From what he had learned, Wu's origin source universe could produce 50,000 primordial stones in one era, 5 times stronger than the 8th Tribulation realm. Now, Jian Wushuang's origin source universe was even more exaggerated. It could nurture 1,000,000 primordial stones in one era. When he reached the 7th tribulation, it might be 10 million. The more it nurtured, the faster it consumed. The subsequent cost to light up universes had skyrocketed to over 100 million primordial stones. And this was just for the 4th universe. For the 5th universe, it might require more than 1,000,000,000 primordial stones. Moreover, there were tribulations to pass, which would also be a significant expense. In the future, he would have to seek out major forces for transactions whenever possible. He had to make more preparations for the future. Pleasant transaction. Overall, Jian Wushuang was very pleased. The hard work he had put in was now yielding substantial returns, and his face bore a smile. The ancestor of the Bai family was even more delighted. If Jian Wushuang hadn't been present, he would have wanted to go into seclusion immediately. Come, Brother Wushuang, the banquet is ready. Jian Wushuang did not decline, as he didn't mind spending a couple of days. To show his sincerity, the Bai family ancestor had even left the ancient moon pope to accompany Jian Wushuang for drinks, as she was his daughter after all. Even though she had become the pope of ancient moon spacetime, that didn't change anything. The thoughtful Bai family ancestor had also invited Wuxian to resolve past grievances. He wasn't foolish. He could see that the relationship between Wuxian and Jian Wushuang was not ordinary. The banquet went smoothly. Jian Wushuang had many conversations with the Bai family ancestor and the ancient moon pope. They mainly discussed the fall of ancient moon spacetime. From the two of them, he learned more about the Celestial Maiden. Although the Celestial Maiden had completely disappeared, Xianxia remained. She was the reincarnation of the Celestial Maiden. Know yourself and your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Only one person was missing from the banquet. Jian Wushuang originally thought the Bai family ancestor would bring along Divine Wood King, but unfortunately he did not come. There was no need to greet him then. Soon he would leave with Wuxian. The next meeting might be a long time away. The banquet lasted several hours. Knowing the two were quite busy, the Bai family ancestor was eager to return to his peak, and the ancient moon pope had to report back. Although she was the pope, those 30 billion primordial stones were the accumulation of ancient moon sect, and she still needed to distribute them among the old members after returning. Jian Wushuang also needed to prepare to meet Wuxia and others. Now, after 100,000 years, without the pyramid, Wuxia and others were probably already near ancient moon spacetime. At that time, they would be able to search for Hu Qing together. Then, they said goodbye to ancient moon spacetime, bidding farewell to the entire upper reaches of the spacetime river. Brother Bai, no need to see us off. We have plenty of time in the future. Jian Wushuang, taking Wuxian with him, waved back as he tore through the void and left by Divine Mountain. Since reincarnating into ancient moon spacetime, Wuxian had not yet left during the daytime. Unlike Wuxia, who had traversed the 9 major spacetimes and even the realm god continent. Swoosh! The two of them reached the void, and Jian Wushuang took out a golden pyramid, startling Wuxian. What is this? Wuxian asked in surprise. He could sense the pyramid's mighty power, a force capable of suppressing his nether hell. It was a supreme treasure above the 8th tribulation level. Seeing Wuxian's astonished expression, Jian Wushuang felt very pleased. This is a spacecraft of the Machine Clan. It's your fortune to witness it in the northern spacetime. Ding! The golden pyramid hovered above them, drawing both of them inside. Upon entering, Jian Wushuang clasped his hands behind his back. Babata! Teleport us to the Chenkuan Hall. Yes, master. Babata's voice echoed around them, and soon they were in the so-called Chenkuan Hall. This was the central hall of the pyramid. It had places for resting and cultivation. Jian Wushuang casually found a comfortable cushion and sat cross-legged, raising his hand in greeting. If you're not in a hurry to cultivate, just find a spot to sit. If you need anything, ask Babata to help you. Everything can be taken care of. After saying this, he began pouring himself a drink and leisurely drank it. To showcase the pyramid's capabilities, he deliberately had Babata report on their surroundings. Immediately, Several huge screens appeared in front of them, displaying all external scenes with numerous green dots flickering. The green dots represented universe masters. If they were enemies, they would be red dots. Even distances and titles could be marked. Wuxian watched all of this as if he were a country boy entering the imperial city. He stared blankly for a long while before finding a place to sit, then tentatively said, "Babata, I'm here." Babata's figure instantly appeared before Wuxian. Wuxian even sensed the life force within Babata, took a deep breath and said, "Copy all the information on Ancient Moon spacetime for me." "No problem," Babata said, fiddling with a small screen. In a short while, he handed a device to Wuxian. "Everything is on here. You can browse it at your leisure. If you have any questions, feel free to call Babata at any time." After finishing speaking, he disappeared directly. Wuxian held the celestial canopy, not needing to flip through it as everything about Ancient Moon spacetime automatically displayed above. From the opening of spacetime to the present era, everything was recorded above. "Jian Wushuang, this Babata, do you still have another one of it?" Apparently, he was also somewhat tempted. Even though his temperament was restrained, he couldn't help but inquire, wanting to get one for himself. This was just too convenient. Anyone would be tempted. Jian Wushuang revealed a hint of a smile and calmly said, "In the North spacetime, perhaps only this one remains. If you want it, you can wait to go to the Realm God continent later to obtain one. But I must remind you, this pyramid was snatched from a super powerhouse comparable to the Ninth Tribulation Realm." Upon hearing, comparable to the Ninth Tribulation Realm, Wuxian's eyelids twitched for a moment, but he quickly dismissed the idea. He began to continuously browse through the information about Ancient Moon spacetime on the celestial canopy. From the opening of spacetime, the era of celestial maidens, the 9 heavens and 10 earths, the era of downfall, most of it pertained to a certain period of time. After reading these without looking at several epochs in between, he directly opened up events that occurred in the past million epochs. The fall of the Flame God. This was a major event, and the demise of Fan Tianfeng was also recorded because it was due to Fan Tianfeng's issue that led to the fall of the Flame God, so naturally it would be recorded. Apart from this, there was the disappearance of the Wu Hua secret realm. Then came the opening of the Wanlu divine tree, until the disappearance of the Wanlu divine tree, and then the disappearance of the Ancient Moon ruins. In Ancient Moon spacetime, the 3 most dangerous secret realms had all disappeared. They were all closely related to the initial 10 individuals. The disappearance of the Wanlu divine wood was related to Jian Wushuang, and the relationship was not small. Although the Ancient Moon ruins were established by the Celestial Maiden, they also had the existence of Huiqing. As for the Wu Hua secret realm, there was no need to say much. It was prepared for Wu Zua, and after Wu Zua left, the Realm King took it away. These 3 major secret realms, except for the Ancient Moon ruins, were not the secret realms born in Ancient Moon spacetime. The Wu Hua secret realm was put into Ancient Moon spacetime by the Realm King, and the Wanlu divine tree was moved from the starry sky to the northern spacetime by Weiss. This time, everything was gone. Having learned about the recent changes in Ancient Moon spacetime, Wuxian was especially astonished by what Jian Wushuang had done. He witnessed and even helped a god of life. Jian Wushuang, under Wuxian's astonished gaze, simply drank his wine in silence, pretending to be nonchalant. "Ding! Master, Wu Zua is requesting assistance." Babata instantly flew over, his face filled with urgency. Once inside the pyramid, Jian Wushuang entrusted all communication tokens to Babata. Upon hearing about Wu Zua's request for help, Jian Wushuang downed the contents of his cup in one gulp and calmly asked, "Coordinates time, opponent?" A series of orders were given. Babata quickly responded, "It will take approximately half a year to reach the desolate area outside Ancient Moon spacetime. The opponent is a top-tier expert at the 8th Tribulation. Currently, they pose no threat to Wu Zua and the others, but someone has been abducted." Jian Wushuang couldn't sit still upon hearing this, immediately standing up. Who? Who has been abducted?" Yi Lingxiao. Relieved upon hearing the name, Jian Wushuang let out a sigh. Fortunately, it wasn't someone from his own group who had been taken. However, it wasn't surprising that Yi Lingxiao had been abducted, just unexpected that it had happened so quickly. "Help me contact Wu Zhuo." Jian Wushuang's expression darkened. At this moment, anyone daring to offend him or Wu Zhuo was either an outlaw or someone lurking in the shadows. They weren't afraid of their backgrounds or their strength. For a top-tier expert at the 8th Tribulation, theoretically, Wu Zhuo should be able to handle it. If they could still abduct someone under these circumstances, it meant that their divine power was estimated to be over 8 million, already reaching the peak level. It was just that Wu Zhuo hadn't noticed. Moreover, only Yi Lingxiao was taken, which meant that they still had some concerns about their background and strength. Babata immediately helped Jian Wushuang contact Wu Zhuo in real time. Wu Zhuo's face appeared directly on the canopy. "Wu Zhuo, are you all right?" Jian Wushuang first expressed concern about their safety. Only after seeing that everyone's expressions were normal through the canopy did he finally relax. However, Wu Zhuo grumbled, "Wushuang, hurry up and come pick us up. That person hasn't escaped far. Hurry over. Catch up with that bastard. I'll make him regret it." Wu Zhuo, who had never suffered a setback, feared neither heaven nor earth. Not only was he beaten up this time, but his people were also abducted. How could he let it go? Wan Yen, who was beside him, also came over with an anxious expression and said, "Wushuang, I left some divine power on Lingxiao. I can sense the position of that mysterious expert. With the speed of the pyramid, we can catch up with them. All right, you all wait here. I'll see you in half a year." Jian Wushuang didn't say much more and directly ended the communication. He instructed Babata to activate the black hole level speed to head to the desolate area. The speed of an ordinary 8th Tribulation realm was not even 1/10 of the pyramids. And this was at black hole level speed. If it were at secret realm level speed, it could catch up with ancient beings. However, the consumption of black radiance essence would be too much, which he couldn't afford at the moment. Buzz! The pyramid tore through space-time and began to move at full speed. Jian Wushuang was also pondering who dared to target Yi Lingxiao. Firstly, he could rule out the Blood Demon Temple Master. The other party had been honest at that time and should not dare to provoke him again. But to be safe, he still contacted the other party, both to probe and to ask if they knew anyone else who possessed the blood-colored power. The Blood Demon Temple Master was also extremely surprised to learn that Yi Lingxiao had been taken. He first proved his innocence and then analyzed the situation for Jian Wushuang. Very few people knew about the blood-colored power. At least in the Tiansong Eternal Realm, no one could control it except himself. Apart from appearing in the Tiansong Eternal Realm, Yi Lingxiao had only been in the ancient moon spacetime where she was born. Jian Wushuang immediately had a reaction and, after thanking the other party, had a hypothesis in mind. Black Heaven Yi family. His expression turned somber. "Babata, send me the information on the Yi family." As soon as Babata heard the Blood Demon Palace Master mention the Yi family, he had already gathered the information on them and took it out now. "Master, all the information on the Yi family is here. I also contacted the Ancient Moon Pope and Divine Wood King in your name. All the information we got from them is in here." "Good." Jian Wushuang took the screen and began to review the information on the Black Heaven Yi family and some past events involving Yi Lingxiao within the Yi family. The Yi family, the first family of the ancient Black Heaven, was quite similar to the Bai family. Both had established 8-star sections. Their ancestors were all king-level existences. The Yi family's Yi Xiaowang, a peak 8th Tribulation expert, had once obtained a life fountain in the ancient moon ruins and had always maintained his peak condition. The blood robe sect he established had also remained prosperous. The current head of the Yi family, Yi Lingyun, was also a 7th Tribulation Universe Master, extremely powerful, already at the level of a marquis. And Yi Lingxiao was Yi Lingyun's younger sister. They had the same father but different mothers. Their father was a 7th Tribulation rogue cultivator. Not particularly outstanding. But among his children, there were quite a few remarkable figures. Yi Lingyun was a universe master at the half-step 8th Tribulation. Yi Lingxiao was also a universe master at the 5th Tribulation. There were several other descendants, all universe masters at the 4th Tribulation level. This lineage, because of a few promising younger members, was highly regarded by Yi Xiaowang. The young master of the Blood Robe sect, whom Jian Wushuang had slain earlier, was Yi Lingyun's son. The reason for the young master's arrogance was well-founded. After reading the introduction of the Yi family, Jian Wushuang began to review everything about Yi Lingxiao. Born over tens of millions of eras, Yi Lingxiao had achieved the status of a universe master at the fifth tribulation realm. This period was not considered short. Jian Wushuang had encountered many prodigies, many of whom reached the fifth tribulation universe master level within just 100,000 eras. For instance, Wu Li. Born around 100,000 eras ago, Wu Li had now reached the half-step seventh tribulation realm. He followed Danbao to the realm god continent, and with the treasures bestowed by the realm king, it was not difficult for him to achieve the seventh tribulation. This could be considered as late bloomers achieving greatness, becoming prodigies. Looking through Yi Lingxiao's experiences, Jian Wushuang did not find anything extraordinarily outstanding. Shortly after Yi Lingxiao was born, he became an emperor. Later, after successfully passing his tribulation, he quickly became a universe master at the fifth tribulation realm, almost within 10,000 eras. In the subsequent tens of millions of eras, he remained a universe master at the fifth tribulation. This seemed normal enough, encountering a bottleneck that one couldn't break through. But Jian Wushuang did not think so. An explosion of progress in a short period, followed by a long silence? He pondered to himself, recalling the incident of Tongtian Buddha transforming into Wutian. It was quite similar. Shortly after entering the ancient moon spacetime, Wutian shone brightly and then fell silent. Although this was due to the Bai family's suppression, the potential was inherent, and even the nether hell couldn't suppress it. Once broken through, it transformed into a dragon. Yi Lingxiao's background was far more complicated than it appeared, and it was not simply because of a bottleneck that he was stuck at the fifth tribulation universe master level. It was most likely due to the blood-colored power within him. Babada. Turn around, head to Daughter Kingdom. Jian Wushuang suddenly changed his route, thinking about the source of everything. It was when he first encountered the blood-colored power. Yu Kingdom, the Chun family. Although the entire Yu Kingdom had been destroyed, the records of Yu Kingdom should still be with Empress Fengqin. She definitely knew much more about the Qin family than he did. He needed to ask the Empress about the past events concerning the Qin family. The current Empress was no longer in her imperial position. With Yu Kingdom gone, she had left the infinite great world, was saved by the Queen of the Daughter Kingdom, and had since been hiding there without any news. The last time he went to the Daughter Kingdom, he did not see her. Originally, it was to avoid awkwardness, but now he couldn't care about such things. The power of blood was so special, and all indications pointed to ancient moon spacetime. He had to figure it out. Otherwise, even if he found Yi Lingxiao, he wouldn't be able to solve the issue all at once. The most crucial reason was that he too coveted the power of blood. It was a juicy piece of meat that everyone was eyeing. How could he not be tempted? Of course, he wouldn't harm Yi Lingxiao. The best outcome would be a win-win situation. He knew that the power of blood needed to be digested. Back then, he had benefited endlessly from just a beetle, and the beetle wasn't even an emperor. Now, a universe master at the fifth tribulation who controlled the power of blood would surely soar. The pyramid changed direction, and in just an hour, it was hovering over the Daughter Kingdom. Babada, you take Wutian to pick up Wuxia and the others. I'm afraid I'll be staying here for a while. Jian Wushuang sensed that there was no trace of the Empress's aura within the Daughter Kingdom, indicating that she was most likely not there. He would have to search for her. So, he let Babada take Wutian to pick up Wuxia and the others, while he went alone to find the Empress and ask about the Qin family. Wutian didn't understand the power of blood, but seeing Jian Wushuang so serious, he didn't ask too many questions and rested with his eyes closed. Swoosh! As soon as Jian Wushuang left the pyramid, the surrounding space changed. The pyramid headed towards the desolate area outside ancient moon spacetime, while he descended into the capital of the Daughter Kingdom. Out of respect for Queen Yunji, he only revealed a slight trace of his aura, not making a grand entrance. He quietly waited for the experts from the daughter kingdom to find him. Sure enough, the moment his presence was detected, a team of experts from the daughter kingdom descended. "It's you." The person who arrived was familiar. It was the same female Valkyrie from the capital who had initially received Jian Wushuang and Jinshin, a universe master at the Sixth Tribulation. Her strength was extremely formidable. She was not weaker than Empress Fengqian of the Infinite World back then. Jian Wushuang remained humble and calmly said, "I came suddenly and disturbed you. Please report to the queen that Wushuang seeks an audience." "Follow me." The Valkyrie knew Jian Wushuang was special. He had been an emperor back then, but in the blink of an eye, he had become a universe master at the Sixth Tribulation just like her. She had also heard of his terrifying combat power and naturally dared not neglect him. She led Jian Wushuang towards the imperial city of the daughter kingdom. In the shadows, the queen had already been informed. After entering the imperial city with the Valkyrie, they headed straight to the main hall. Upon seeing the familiar figure, Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and respectfully said, "Junior Jian Wushuang pays respects to Queen Yunji. Queen Yunji displayed the same smile as before. "I can sense that your divine power has surpassed mine. You don't need to call yourself a junior anymore. From now on, just call me Yunji." Although Jian Wushuang had only revealed a bit of his basic divine power, the power contained within was extremely special. As a universe master at the Seventh Tribulation, she could tell that the power Jian Wushuang revealed was not inferior to hers in her own Dao arena. Of course, if he intentionally hid it, she wouldn't be able to see through it. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang's expression turned serious and solemn. "I cannot. The queen has shown me great kindness, and I should still pay my respects as a junior." "Sigh." Queen Yunji shook her head helplessly. Seeing the now ambitious Jian Wushuang, who had not changed his original intentions, she felt pity for Jinshin, who was no longer around. After a sigh, Yunji slowly stood up and looked at Jian Wushuang. "You must have something important to attend to this time." "Yes, Junior has an important matter to inquire about." "The Empress." After some hesitation, he still addressed her by Empress Fengqian's title. Queen Yunji's expression turned somewhat surprised. Then she showed a troubled look. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang quickly explained, "Please don't worry, Queen. I came this time to ask about some matters related to the former Yu Kingdom. It has nothing to do with Jinshin." He was afraid of being misunderstood, so he directly stated his reason. The destruction of Yu Kingdom had actually occurred during the time of the Sacred Assembly when all the experts on ancient Wood Continent were focused on the Sacred Assembly, and no one noticed. After the Sacred Assembly ended, the Wanlu Divine Tree was also activated. The disappearance of Yu Kingdom seemed even more insignificant. Moreover, the ancient Wood sect was gone, so no one cared. Shi Kingdom couldn't even take care of itself. Their patriarch had also fallen. The flame god was also gone. They had lost the support of an Eighth Tribulation powerhouse. It wasn't until Xianxia successfully passed the tribulation and became a universe master at the Seventh Tribulation that the situation stabilized. However, the status of the Shi Kingdom had plummeted. Or rather, the presence of all 16 kingdoms of Qingchao was declining. Now, the ancient Wood continent was under the dominion of the ancient Wood sect, and its ruling power was exponentially stronger than ever before. Moreover, since Divine Wood King emerged from the Wanlu Divine Tree, his personality had changed significantly. He opened the sect's doors wide, accepting disciples from all walks of life without discrimination. Now, the overall strength of the ancient Wood sect had surpassed many 8-star sections. On the ancient Wood continent, the ancient Wood sect stood unrivaled. Once even the Shi Kingdom could bully them a bit, but now they had truly revealed their profound foundation. This was all thanks to the formidable presence of Divine Wood King. In the entire ancient moon spacetime, he ranked among the top 3. Even those universe masters who had returned after enduring Eighth Tribulation were no match for him. Only the current ancient moon pope could suppress him using the origin source of the universe. With the sect's power flourishing, the 16 kingdoms of Qingchao were having tough times. Now each remained low-key. Moreover, 2 of the 16 kingdoms had been annihilated. The Yongheng kingdom disappeared due to the emergence of Babidi. Yu kingdom was also massacred by a mysterious strongman, leaving only 14 kingdoms now. Back when Yu kingdom was destroyed, many actually knew about it but had no time to deal with it. Only Queen Yunji, who had a particular concern for Yu kingdom, personally went to take a look and saw the truth of Yu kingdom's destruction through space-time. Now, hearing Jian Wushuang ask about Yu kingdom, she was somewhat surprised. Both had misunderstood each other. Do you want to know how Yu kingdom was destroyed? The Queen Yunji slowly paced, walking up to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang didn't expect to gain unexpected information, so he patiently asked, "Please enlighten me, Your Majesty." The Yu kingdom of those years. The eyes of the Queen Yunji held a trace of reminiscence, recalling a scene she had witnessed back in the Yu kingdom, along with a terrifying figure left in the space-time. Starting from the 7th year of the ancient Wood Assembly, cultivators in the Yu kingdom began to be slaughtered. At first, no one noticed, but as various sects and families were exterminated, cultivators began to flee the Yu kingdom one after another. A strong cultivator of the royal family of Yu kingdom, before falling, sent a message to me. But at that time, I was in seclusion. During the time the assembly was underway, Queen Yunji had not long broken through to the 7th tribulation and had not ventured out. She was only in seclusion, cultivating in the daughter kingdom. She did not pay attention to any information from the outside world. By the time she emerged from seclusion, all the cultivators of the Yu kingdom had been exterminated, turning it into a desolate place. The powerful members of the Yu kingdom's royal family were gone, and surrounding forces began to probe. Once they found there was no threat, they occupied what was once the Yu kingdom. Now, millions of eons had passed, and it no longer resembled its former self. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. Were all the cultivators and ordinary people gone? Yes. I was also very shocked when I saw it. Queen Yunji nodded. To be able to wipe out the cultivators of an entire kingdom, especially when the Yu kingdom's royal family included several loose cultivators in the 6th tribulation, who were quite powerful, and yet they had no ability to resist and fell. The culprit must have been a strong cultivator at least in the 7th tribulation to be able to achieve such silent slaughter. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sought the empress to understand the Qin family. Now, the strong cultivators of the Yu kingdom were very few. Some lucky ones were not in the Yu kingdom during that period and escaped the calamity. For example, those who attended the assembly. But even those people's luck wasn't much better, as they fell one after another in Dragon God's great world. There were very few real Yu kingdom people left now. The Empress Fengqian could be considered one, the last ruler of a fallen kingdom. And then there was Wu Li. Jian Wushuang couldn't be considered a Yu kingdom person, because ancient moon spacetime never gave him a sense of belonging. Was it a demonic cultivator? He wondered what kind of culprit it was, but to be able to annihilate an entire kingdom, sparing neither cultivators nor ordinary people, leaving none alive, it could only be a demonic cultivator. Queen Yunji recalled that figure and shook her head silently. No, I reversed spacetime and saw its appearance. It wasn't a human, a desolate beast? Jian Wushuang's eyes moved with some surprise. If it was a desolate beast, then its audacity was too great. Furthermore, wild beasts at the level of 7th tribulation wouldn't dare venture into the 16 Qingqiao kingdoms. Beasts at that level were treasures in themselves and would be hunted down if discovered. They wouldn't dare covet human territories. It's not a wild beast either. Its power is very strange, something I've never seen before, and its divine power carries a bloody scent. If I'm not mistaken, those fallen experts were all absorbed by it. It has forged its divine power from the blood essence of countless cultivators. The voice of Queen Yunji trembled slightly. What she had seen during the reversal of time clearly made her very apprehensive. Hearing about the blood-colored power, Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed in surprise. Blood-colored power? Queen Yunji looked at Jian Wushuang. You know about the blood-colored power? Surprised, Jian Wushuang took a breath and thought of something terrifying. He directly stated his purpose for coming. To be honest, I came to find the Empress because of the blood-colored power. and I think I know who the culprit behind the destruction of your kingdom is. At this moment, he remembered the beetle he had once sealed in the blood-colored altar. It contained blood-colored power, but at that time it wasn't much of a threat and he hadn't paid much attention to it. Later, he visited the Sure Kingdom, and the massacre at the mansion happened just when he was preparing for the sacred assembly, so he didn't investigate deeply. Only now did he realize the culprit behind the mansion massacre and the destruction of your kingdom was likely that beetle. With no bottlenecks, the blood-colored power alone could infinitely enhance it. However, back then, the blood-colored power was too scarce. It could increase divine power by a couple 100,000 units, but more than that was unimaginable. Even if the beetle had devoured all the blood-colored power, it shouldn't have become powerful enough to destroy the entire Yu kingdom. After hearing the words of Queen Yunji, he understood that the beetle could devour the blood essence of cultivators, which is the essence of divine power. Imagine a regular cultivator at the first tribulation level, who, after devouring tens of thousands of emperors, reaches the second tribulation level, and then starts devouring first tribulation level cultivators. In a few years, it could grow to a terrifying extent. Now, having devoured an entire nation's experts, it might have reached the peak of the seventh tribulation level. It's not too late. Jian Wushuang's eyes gleamed with killing intent. This was a significant threat that needed to be dealt with promptly. Although it wouldn't threaten him for the time being, it would definitely pose a threat to the entire northern spacetime in the future. Infinite growth, this couldn't be allowed. It was more terrifying than Qi Jiuxiao. He couldn't accept it. And with the thought of Yi Ling Xiao being taken away, he couldn't help but think along these lines. If the powerful being behind this was that beetle, then it was over. Inside Yi Ling Xiao's body, there was an endless supply of blood-red power. Even for a super-powerful figure like the Blood Demon Hall Master, this power would be a great help. If the beetle absorbed it, he would no longer be a match for it. Speaking of which, it was all his own fault. Back then, he had destroyed the Qin family, attracting the strong of the Yu Kingdom's royal family to investigate. And then, by a twist of fate, he obtained that damned insect. Although it had increased his divine power significantly, it had now brought about such a threat, endangering the entire northern spacetime. Queen Yunji, seeing Jian Wushuang's tense expression, comforted him. Don't worry. Over the years, I have been constantly observing the 9 heavens and 10 lands, and even other spacetime realms. Nothing like what happened in the Yu Kingdom has occurred again. Any 6th tribulation experts who died mysteriously I kept an eye on. That terrifying entity should not have appeared again. Perhaps it doesn't care about those practitioners anymore. Jian Wushuang voiced his speculation. Maybe the beetle found that absorbing practitioners yielded too little blood-red power, so it chose to hide and seek the source of the blood-red power instead. Upon hearing his words, Queen Yunji's eyes flickered as she frowned and said, "You came to find Fengqin to investigate the blood-red power?" "Yes." Jian Wushuang nodded. "I have a friend with a blood-red origin source who was just taken away. Let's go. I'll take you to Fengqin." Knowing the gravity of the situation, Yunji wrapped Jian Wushuang with her thought power, ready to tear through space. However, Jian Wushuang proactively tore through space and said, "Your Majesty, give me the coordinates. I'm faster." Very well. Yunji dispersed her power and was enveloped by Jian Wushuang's thought power. In an instant, they left the daughter kingdom. Turning to look at the young man beside her, in the blink of an eye, he had already surpassed her, causing a strange feeling in her heart. The location of Empress Fengqin was actually not far from the ancient Wood continent. It was in the gap between the 9 heavens and 10 lands. This was the so-called outer domain Jian Wushuang always mentioned. Secret realms and cave heavens were everywhere. However, those secret realms were all owned by someone. Inside them were either the origin source universes of universe masters or trial grounds for certain families. The place Jian Wushuang and Yunji were heading to was a spacetime secret realm. It was very famous in the entire ancient moon spacetime. That place was a realm where even experts at the 6th tribulation and 7th tribulation ventured, and occasionally some experts at the 8th tribulation would also visit. Qishuan Domain. 7 colored lights swirled around, forming a super-secret realm. contained countless treasures. Formed during the fall of ancient moon spacetime, this secret realm encompassed countless sect ruins, with some treasures useful even to universe masters floating on the periphery. And it had persisted for ages. Even an 8-star sect would struggle to conquer it, because inside there was a chaotic origin source. Only a peak 8th Tribulation universe master could suppress this secret realm, but doing so would result in backlash, making it a high cost no one was willing to bear. It remained unclaimed, attracting strong practitioners from nearby continents to explore it. In the outer domain, survival below the Tribulation realm was difficult, so when Jian Wushuang once claimed he was wandering in the outer domain, many were surprised. And now, before him was one of the most dangerous secret realms in the outer realms, the Qixuan domain. Stronger than this were the spacetime secret realms nurtured within the 9 heavens and 10 lands. A 6th Tribulation universe master would fall at the core of the Qixuan domain, a 7th Tribulation expert would be injured, and some restrictions could even trap 8th Tribulation experts. Previously, Jian Wushuang would only dare to observe such a secret realm from afar. But now there was nothing here that could trap him. If only the pyramid were here, with one black hole level attack, he could shatter the Qixuan domain. In the inner area, approaching the Qixuan domain, Jian Wushuang instantly locked onto Empress Fengxian's location. Seems she's in quite a bit of trouble. After pinpointing the location, he ignored any prohibitions and forcefully broke through. This scene terrified the Tribulation realm experts on the periphery. A big shot. The prohibitions here can't be broken by a 6th Tribulation expert, and yet someone dares to force their way in. He must be a 7th Tribulation expert. Among the powerful beings on the periphery, they sensed the entire Qixuan domain trembling and spotted Jian Wushuang and his companion in a stream of light. The queen of the daughter kingdom of the ancient Wood continent, a top-tier powerhouse among the universe masters of the 7th Tribulation. Recognizing Yun Ji's identity, the unnamed powerhouse sucked in a breath of cold air. In the Qixuan domain, reaching the 7th Tribulation was enough to dominate. A universe master of the 7th Tribulation was comparable to a super powerhouse who had undergone the 8th Tribulation. They dared to intrude boldly. Among the fallen 7th Tribulation powerhouses in the Qixuan domain, none were universe masters. But it wasn't certain that all internal dangers had been exposed. There might be hidden restrictions that could threaten the universe masters of the 7th Tribulation. Jian Wushuang, however, was fearless and barged through without hesitation. The terrifying power of the starry sky casually crushed those restrictions, and even some ignorant puppets attempting to block their way were torn to shreds. The savage beasts were smart enough to keep their distance. Along the way, remnants of sects were torn apart, countless treasures burst out, but Jian Wushuang couldn't be bothered to spare them a glance. The value of some treasures here ranged from hundreds to thousands, with the most expensive ones having once been worth millions of primordial stones. Although such super treasures were rare throughout history. For Jian Wushuang now, even millions of primordial stones were beneath his notice. If it were billions, he might consider taking action. His indifference, however, gave the onlooking powerhouses a great opportunity. Countless 7th Tribulation powerhouses went crazy plundering, sparking one thrilling life and death battle after another, which was extremely exciting. It's just a pity Jian Wushuang couldn't see it. The Empress was in the core area of the Qixuan domain. At this moment, she was facing off against 2 7th Tribulation powerhouses. Although she had reached the peak of the 6th Tribulation after receiving the treasure from Jian Wushuang, she still felt somewhat powerless against 2 7th Tribulation scattered Tribulation cultivators. If it weren't for the rumors from the outside world that Jian Wushuang was her son-in-law, she might have died on the spot today. In the heart of the core domain, Empress Fengxian gazed proudly at the 2 7th Tribulation experts, blood staining her lips, but she showed no sign of retreat. "Why bother?" sighed one of the 2 7th Tribulation experts facing each other. "Fengxian, if it weren't for Jian Wushuang, we would have killed you long ago. Don't be so ignorant." The gaze of the other 7th Tribulation expert turned cold. This was the Qixuan domain, a place where battles were commonplace. They wouldn't hold back because of anyone's background. If Queen Yun Ji continued to resist stubbornly, they wouldn't hesitate to strike. If it were just ordinary treasures, they wouldn't risk attacking Fengchen, who had a connection with Jian Wushuang. But that particular treasure was crucial to both of them, because it housed a spring of life essence, which was extremely valuable. If they obtained it, they could restore themselves to their peak. That's why they dared to take such risks. No more nonsense. If you want it, show us your full strength. Queen Yunji's tone was resolute, showing no signs of backing down. The last time she retreated, the entire Yu kingdom suffered. She gained strength through that experience. But she lost everything she once had. The once incredibly beautiful vision was all gone. The position of the Holy Maiden? The ancient Wud sect had been rebuilt, and the position of the Holy Maiden was long gone. She didn't want to go back to that place of heartache. After exchanging a glance, the two seventh tribulation experts nodded to each other and issued their final ultimatum. In that case, don't blame us for being ruthless. As soon as they finished speaking, they were about to make their move. But they felt the surrounding space-time trembling. In such a situation, either an extraordinary treasure had appeared, or a super-strong individual was disrupting the Qishuan domain. The three who were about to act were all stunned. Just now, an extraordinary treasure had appeared here, worth millions of primordial stones if sold. The chance of another treasure appearing was too slim. It was probably caused by the commotion from the arrival of a super-strong individual. Could it be? Can't be that there's a super-strong individual already. Aware that the power of life has emerged here, those two seventh tribulation experts were somewhat panicked. The appearance of the god of life made the scattered tribulation in the entire northern spacetime become tense. In pursuit of the power of life, they had reached the point of resorting to any means necessary. If it was indeed a super powerhouse descending, then they would have no chance. Attack! Without any hesitation, the two of them wanted to obtain the power of life before the arrival of the super powerhouse and then use it. Empress Fengchen, however, sensed a familiar aura. It was the aura of Queen Yunji. As for Jian Wushuang's aura, she couldn't perceive it. I have descended, yet you still dare to act. In the depths of space-time, a giant face appeared, its expression somewhat angry. With a cold snort, it shattered the divine bodies of the two seventh tribulation experts. After dispersing, they reformed but still suffered heavy injuries. Empress Fengchen looked at the majestic face in the depths of space-time, her eyes flickering, somewhat stunned. Her lips moved slightly, hoarsely saying, Jian Wushuang, whoosh. After the projection of divine power descended for a breath, Jian Wushuang and the true form of Queen Yunji also arrived. Jian Wushuang, the two heavily injured seventh tribulation experts exclaimed in unison, both fearful and delighted at the name. Delighted because Jian Wushuang possessed boundless life force, yet fearful because of his strength. Jian Wushuang paid no attention to the two seventh tribulation experts but went straight to Empress Fengchen. His voice softened. Your Majesty, it's been a long time. Indeed, they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Since they parted ways in the Dragon God continent, millions of epochs had passed in the outside world. Seeing each other again, both their strengths and statuses had undergone earth-shaking changes. Looking at the once designated consort before her, Empress Fengchen's heart was filled with mixed feelings. She had long anticipated that Jian Wushuang would be a calamity for Yu Kingdom, but she hadn't expected it to be this severe. Although the fall of Yu Kingdom had nothing to do with Jian Wushuang, everything in the past couldn't be separated from him. Why have you come? Seeing Jian Wushuang reminded her of the past, stirring up turmoil in her heart. Seeing the other's grim expression, Jian Wushuang was about to speak but was interrupted by Queen Yunji. She still wore that irresistible smile as she gently floated towards Empress Fengchen, taking her hand, and softly said, Fengchen, Wushuang is here because of Yu Kingdom's situation. The rest of the conversation was more confidential, so Queen Yunji chose to use telepathy. Jian Wushuang then saw Empress Fengchen's expression gradually relax. Inevitably, he couldn't help but sigh inwardly that Queen Yunji's character was indeed better. Dealing with such a powerful woman as Empress Fengchen required a gentle approach. And for Queen Yunji to come in person, If it were him, it would probably be quite troublesome. All right, let's talk about it when we get back. Queen Yunji patted Fengchen's shoulder, her tone casual, as if everything was not a problem. Empress Fengchen did not reply but tacitly agreed. After dealing with the Empress, Jian Wushuang turned his head to glance at the 2-7 tribulation experts, who were kneeling in terror in the void, their heads buried between their knees, trembling. This reminded him of a time when he had been in such a plight himself. So he didn't make things difficult for the two. With a thought, he tore through the fabric of space, carrying the Empress and Queen Yunji away. But before leaving, he left behind 2 masses of life force potent enough to drive 8th tribulation experts mad. Unbelievable. The 2 7th tribulation experts stared at the masses of life force for a long time, unable to believe their eyes. Once they realized Jian Wushuang had truly departed, they bowed several times in the direction he had left, before daring to accept the life force and directly absorbing it on the spot to restore their divine bodies. In the depths of the imperial city of the Daughter Kingdom, beside a fake mountain, Jian Wushuang stood under a peach tree, arms crossed. He listened carefully to the Empress recounting the history of the Qin family. He tried hard to uncover anything suspicious. Black Heaven Yi family. Jian Wushuang's gaze shifted. Finally, he heard what he wanted amid their conversation. Though he had some guesses, there was still some uncertainty in his heart. Now knowing that the Chun family hailed from the ancient Black Heaven, and that an ancestor of the Qin family had once married a disciple of the Blood Robe sect. This is all I know about the Chun family, the Empress finished, looking at Jian Wushuang, evidently wanting to know if there was any connection between the destruction of Yu Kingdom and the Chun family. At this moment, Jian Wushuang also reached his final conclusion. After taking a deep breath, he admitted, "Your Majesty, I'm deeply sorry. The culprit who destroyed Yu Kingdom wasn't the Yi family, but a monster. The same cocoon that Yanlong Patriarch gave me in the Great Hall." He directly revealed the truth, which was the real reason behind the destruction of Yu Kingdom. As for the Yi family, Jian Wushuang didn't want them to be implicated. The influence of the blood-colored power was significant. One small mistake could lead to a repeat of the tragedy. He could handle it, but the Empress and Queen Yunji couldn't. If it was indeed related to the Yi family, it was his own matter, not much related to the Empress. Moreover, he would soon leave the upstream spacetime. Whether he would come back or not was uncertain. In the future, he wouldn't be able to protect the Empress anymore. A cocoon. At this moment, a trace of helplessness appeared on Fengchen's face, as the strands of her hair fluttered before her eyes. It was the mockery of fate. The cocoon she had once disregarded ended up destroying Yu Kingdom. After learning the identity of the murderer, she felt anger but didn't know how to vent it. Instead, she wandered aimlessly until Queen Yunji's guidance helped her find peace. Now she felt empty. Seek revenge? She didn't have the strength for it. Endure silently? That wasn't her nature. So her only hope rested with Jian Wushuang. "I will do my best." Jian Wushuang didn't make any promises, only stating that he would try his hardest. Because he hadn't thought about seeking revenge for Yu Kingdom. His goal was to help Wan Yin find Yi Lingxiao, to gain the power of blood, to strengthen himself. He didn't think much beyond that. The atmosphere became somewhat awkward for a moment. After Jian Wushuang got the answer he wanted, he didn't linger, hastily taking his leave. Queen Yunji didn't try to detain him, but rather got up to personally see him off. In the upper echelons of the Daughter Kingdom. "Master, there's no need for further farewells. Thank you for this time." Jian Wushuang expressed his gratitude with a cupped fist. But Queen Yunji had something to say, her expression somewhat distant. "Jian Wushuang, on behalf of Fengchen, I apologize for what happened before, back then. Born for the Tao, as long as there's no regret, there's no need to apologize to anyone." Jian Wushuang shook his head, interrupting Queen Yunji. He knew what she was going to say. Though he had once complained about the Empress behind her back, he was still alive and well now, so he harbored no hatred. He just felt sorry for those people from back then. Queen Yunji's gaze flickered, realizing that Jian Wushuang wasn't the type to hold grudges. Otherwise, she wouldn't have sent those treasures back then. So she didn't say anything more. With a rippling sound, Jian Wushuang stepped into the void and bid farewell casually before departing gracefully. Only after the temporal rift closed did Queen Yunji's figure begin to dissipate, returning to the imperial city of the Daughter Kingdom. In the primordial black heaven, perpetually night, but within the void, there was a hint of bloody aura piercing through the heavens. That was the blood robe sect established by the Yi family. Amidst the blood glow, there were numerous universes, all containing the origin source universes of universe masters and some universe secrets. The blood robe sect was situated within one of these secret realms. Compared to the ancient wood continent, the primordial black heaven was extremely stable, but it didn't hold many treasures. Treasures harbored dangers. Initially, the ancient wood sects were established directly outside the Wanlu divine realm to suppress everything. However, the blood robe sect had no place to suppress, merely constructing their sect within the blood glow in the void. The Long Night City. Both the Yi family and the blood robe sect resided in this grand city. Legend has it that this place used to be the origin source universe of the Yi Xiaowang. The Long Night City was once called the Long Night Secret Realm, a main secret realm within the Yi Xiaowang's origin source universe. Swish! A white-robed young man tore through the void and arrived outside the Long Night City. Beside him was a figure clad in black robes, unmoving, with features completely concealed, even their breath entirely veiled. The white-robed youth glanced up at the towering city ahead without hesitation. Then, accompanied by the black-robed figure, he stepped into the Long Night City amidst the crowd. Indistinguishable from the masses, he wore pristine white robes, and his bald head was the only thing that made him stand out. As he entered through the city gates, the white-robed monk glanced back at the void outside, twirling a string of prayer beads in his hand. With a subtle movement, wisdom gleamed in his eyes. "It seems Jian Wushuang has also arrived," the white-robed monk muttered to himself before turning and entering the city. If Jian Wushuang had seen this person's face, he would have been delighted for sure. Hu Qing. Since the destruction of the ancient moon ruins, he had reappeared, now arriving at the Long Night City in the primordial black sky. And his reason for coming was similar to Jian Wushuang's. Upon request to resolve a crisis. Just as Hu Qing entered the Long Night City with the black-robed figure, they headed straight for the Yi family ancestral mansion. "Kindly inform the master that there is a woman named Yi Lingxiao who wishes to see the head of the Yi family." Hu Qing spoke with a calm demeanor, being exceedingly courteous to the two guardians of the Yi family's gates, both of whom were at the tribulation level. He appeared harmless. The two gatekeepers of the Yi family's mansion were shaken upon hearing Yi Lingxiao's name. The long-lost young lady of the Yi family had actually appeared? If Jian Wushuang knew that it was Hu Qing who had taken Yi Lingxiao away, he would be even more shocked. The mysterious strong individuals encountered by Wuxia and the others also surfaced. It was the Hu Qing they were looking for. "Senior, please wait a moment. I will report this immediately." The two gatekeepers were not fools. Unable to discern Hu Qing's strength, they naturally had to be cautious, especially since the visitor came in the identity of the Yi family's young lady. Reporting was only natural. The current head of the Yi family was none other than the father of the blood robe sect's master. It was also Knight Lingxiao's father, Yu Wudao. Buzz. In the backyard of the clan, an old figure suddenly appeared outside the clan gate. "Shower." Yu Wudao's voice trembled slightly. His children were all extraordinarily talented. Not to mention his eldest son, Yu Lingyun, who became the master of the blood robe sect. Even his eldest daughter, Yu Lingxiao, had become a fifth tribulation universe master at an early age. But then she mysteriously disappeared. After searching for so many years, she actually came back. How could he not be happy? When Hu Qing saw the person he wanted to see, he gently took off his black robe, revealing the figure of Yu Lingxiao. And at that moment, Yu Lingxiao regained consciousness. Originally forcibly taken away and then losing consciousness, upon regaining it, she saw her father and the familiar clan mansion. Yu Wudao was in a great mood. He stepped forward and grabbed his daughter's hand, showering her with questions and concern. But Yu Lingxiao was a bit at a loss. She glanced at Hu Qing, but she had no impression of him whatsoever. Everything felt like a dream. Let's go back home. Yu Wudao pulled his daughter towards the mansion. It was only then that he noticed Hu Qing standing beside them. If he hadn't seen him with his own eyes, he wouldn't have noticed Hu Qing's presence. Only then did he realize, and he turned to look at his daughter, obviously wanting Yu Lingxiao to introduce him. But he couldn't see through him. He must be a super strong individual. At least a universe master of the seventh tribulation. But Yu Lingxiao didn't know who Hu Qing was. Before the awkward silence could set in, Hu Qing took the initiative to introduce himself. I am Tianji. I happened to come across the search for relatives message sent out by the Yu family, and I found Miss Yu unconscious in the desolate land. So I brought her back. Desolate land? Unconscious? Yu Lingxiao didn't believe it in her heart. She was certain that the monk in front of her had taken her away. But she couldn't say these things now, so she didn't refute. She didn't believe it. But Yu Wudao did. Upon hearing that the person who saved his daughter's life was visiting, Knight's family warmly welcomed Hu Qing into their ancestral home. Word of this quickly spread. Even their eldest son, Yi Lingyun, was summoned back. A banquet was arranged within the family to celebrate their daughter's return and to express gratitude to Hu Qing. The feast concluded late into the night. Hu Qing was accommodated in a guest room. As for Yi Lingxiao, her return to the family was somewhat involuntary. She didn't harbor much affection for this family. Otherwise, she wouldn't have hesitated to return. But today, seeing her father's attentiveness, she felt a sense of wavering and confusion. It all felt like a dream. After the banquet, ostensibly to retire for the night and ease the tension, she actually slipped into Hu Qing's guest room. This was Yi family's ancestral home, where nothing escaped the eyes of Yi Wudao. He stood with his hands behind his back, facing the window with his eldest son, Yi Lingyun, behind him. Lingxiao has returned. The plan we made originally shall continue. Yi Wudao's once amiable expression was replaced by a sinister look. Yi Lingyun's expression shifted slightly as he respectfully said, Father, about that person? Humph. Yi Wudao snorted coldly. Tomorrow, give him some treasures and send him away. If he refuses to leave, then dispose of him. Yi Lingyun swallowed hard, feeling his father's words were somewhat extreme. He was a universe master at the seventh tribulation, yet he couldn't sense any aura from Hu Qing. How was he supposed to handle this? But Patriarch is currently in seclusion. Who will handle this? You need not worry about that. I have a solution. Yi Wudao sneered. Lord Shilu hasn't absorbed any cultivators for a long time. That Tianji is probably a high-level cultivator at the eighth tribulation, and unlike the strong ones in the ancient moon space-time, no one would care if he's eliminated. At the mention of Shilu, the contemporary bloodcloth sect master, Yi Lingyun couldn't help but shudder. That was a monster. He had always been extremely wary, but with his father and the Patriarch cooperating with Shilu, he had no choice. Seeing his son's unease, Yi Wudao comforted him. All right, I'll take care of it personally. You don't need to intervene. Just ensure everything we need is prepared. This time, our Yi family's overall strength will soar. The entire ancient moon space-time was quite stirred up now. With the disappearance of the ancient moon ruins, the ancient moon space-time lost its burden. There would emerge a large number of strong individuals in the future. By then, their 8-star sects and even the ancient moon sect might be replaced. Changes had to be made now, which meant attaching oneself to the thighs of the powerful. Cooperate with the strong and share everything. Previously, as the power of the ancient moon spacetime waned, they had to rely on the ancient moon sect to maintain their position. Moreover, few strong individuals were born at that time, and they could handle it themselves. But advancing further was difficult. 9 heavens and 10 lands. 19 8-star sects, regardless of the disparity in their strengths. No one dared to overstep. But this balance would soon be broken. Yi Wudao harbored great ambitions in his eyes. Though he was a scattered tribulation, he still hoped for a resurrection. Anything was possible in the future. Ambition was only natural. Divine Wood King of the ancient Wood continent has already rebuilt the ancient Wood sect. His own strength surpasses that of the universe master of the 8th tribulation level. And the patriarch of the Bai family of the primordial White Heaven, not long ago somehow got associated with Jian Wushuang, gaining a burst of life force, and the overall strength of the family erupted again. And the ancient Moon sect also gained life force, probably because of that Jian Wushuang. They are all getting stronger. How can my Yi family afford to stagnate? Yi Wudao's tone was low as he turned to look at his son. Some sacrifices are necessary for the family. However, Yi Lingyun didn't think so. But he didn't refute his father either. He was a universe master, he had a better future, and he had the pride of a strong individual. To enhance the family's strength, sacrificing his sister. Then the next time to enhance the family's strength, would it be his turn to be sacrificed? Speaking of it step by step, sacrificing just one sister. That would still be a very embarrassing thing and would become a stumbling block for his Dao heart. After a moment of silence between father and son, Yi Lingyun took his leave. He didn't want to stay in this family for long, because the chill was heavy. Outside the mansion, within the guest room, Hu Qing saw Yi Lingxiao enter through the door, and he knew the purpose of her visit. With a flick of his finger, he froze the space-time. Even the Yi family patriarch couldn't peek into this place. Who are you exactly? Feeling the stillness of the surrounding space-time, Yi Lingxiao was first scared, then pretended to be calm. What's the matter? Are you afraid? Hu Qing sat cross-legged on the soft couch, lifted the teacup with his hand, took a sip of tea and calmly said, "You'll know my identity later. For now, just remember one thing. I won't harm you." Heh! Yi Lingxiao didn't believe it. You won't harm me? Then why did you send me back to the Yi family? She wasn't a fool. She knew some of the Yi family's plans, so she had been avoiding coming back. Now being sent back to her family by the mysterious powerful figure before her, it was hard for her not to link it to her father's schemes. She had just contacted Wan Yen, who was far away in the desolate land, informing him that after being abducted and taken hostage, she was returned to the Yi family. Feeling a bit more confident now, she spoke with a tone of both probing and threat. Regardless of your intentions, it's best not to harbor ill thoughts. My good friend will come to rescue me soon. Then she added, by the way, don't underestimate my friends. The reason you were able to snatch me away before was because Jian Wushuang wasn't around. He controls the power of life and is comparable to the peak of the 8th tribulation. He's also friends with ancient existences. When he comes, he will take me away too. As Yi Lingyun spoke, a look of satisfaction appeared on her face. She raised Jian Wushuang's name as a flag, linking herself with him. Back then, Jian Wushuang and the others had been able to defy even the Blood Demon Temple Master to protect her. Even the eternal being, Elder Tianzong, treated him with courtesy. Hearing the name Jian Wushuang, Hu Qing's expression changed slightly. Yi Lingxiao thought the other party was afraid and began to persuade him kindly again. If you are at the scattered tribulation level, I can help you exchange some life force. If you are at the peak of the 8th tribulation, there's no need for us insignificant people to be at odds. Why not let me go? Alas! Hu Qing sighed, feeling somewhat misunderstood, and said, I can assure you that I will not harm you, nor your mentioned friends. If you truly care for them, it's best not to let them come. Unable to persuade him, Yi Lingxiao felt a little annoyed. She turned to leave directly. Just as she pushed open the door, she paused, her tone turning cold. You're just afraid. With that, he left straight away. At that moment, the surrounding space returned to calm. Deep within the ancestral home, Yi Wudao observed his daughter but didn't notice anything amiss. However, he also harbored some apprehension towards Hu Qing's strength. With a thread of thought power, he transformed into an avatar and quietly left the Yi family ancestral home. Heading towards the back mountain. That area belonged to the Yi family, and ordinary people couldn't enter at all, because the patriarch was in seclusion there and disliked being disturbed. Apart from the patriarch, there was also a terrifying presence that had arrived here millions of epochs ago. This terrifying presence was a central figure in Yi Wudao's plan. Back then, despite facing a scattered tribulation, he managed to regain control of the family not solely due to his status as the patriarch's son-in-law. It was also because of his decisiveness and ruthlessness. But most importantly, it was because of a blood-red treasure he obtained in the past. This treasure had once alarmed the Yi Xiaowang. That's how he, with a scattered tribulation body, became the head of the Yi family. You should know that in the past, the head of the Yi family would also be the head of the Blood Robe sect. But when he took over, he changed the rules. Whoosh! On the ancestral mountain, a blood-colored storm swept through. Yi Wudao stepped up to the highest point. Before a blood-colored giant gate, he stopped and respectfully revealed a humble expression, saying, "Lord Shilu, I have an important matter to report." Gurgle. A surge from deep within the throat caused the surrounding blood force to dissipate. Then the giant gate shook and opened a gap. A huge eye appeared in the gap, staring at Yi Wudao as he nervously sweated. "Come in and speak." A deep voice came from behind the door. Yi Wudao took a deep breath, cautiously stepping inside the giant gate. The scene behind the blood gate was like a relief on the gate. It was a blood-red cave. At the end of the cave there was the pulsation of blood. After entering the cave, Yi Wudao kept his head down, not daring to look around. "I sense the source of blood from you." Shilu's figure swayed and he came behind Yi Wudao, greedily sniffing the scent. Yi Wudao was startled and quickly turned around, seeing a monstrous face larger than his body, extremely terrifying. Shilu's visage was like that of a bug transformed into a human. Entirely green with black spots, thin, but with a huge head. "Lord Shilu, it's the return of the young miss. She's currently at the mansion." Yi Wudao faced Shilu, not daring to waste words, and reported everything straightforwardly. Upon hearing about the rumored practitioner with a blood-colored origin source, Shilu's expression brightened. "No wonder you exude such a marvelous aura," he remarked. But from Yi Wudao's words, he also learned about an obstacle. Eighth tribulation? Shilu strode towards the mass of blood red within the cave, casually seating himself. "Take him into the void. Leave the rest to me." He had full confidence in his own strength. Since leaving Yu Kingdom, he had possessed the pinnacle divine power of the Eighth Tribulation. Now his divine power had reached a terrifying 15 million, the perfection of the Eighth Tribulation. Throughout the ancient moon spacetime, the only one he feared was the Pope of the ancient moon. As for Divine Wood King, at most, he could only suppress him, unable to defeat him. So, he dared not openly attack in the Long Night City. He intended to lure Hu Qing into the void before striking. Yi Wudao hesitated for a moment before saying, "For this, I need the help of the Patriarch. I'll go request him later, and we can act tomorrow." "Good." Shilu wasn't interested in Hu Qing, but he was greatly interested in Yi Lingxiao. He had absorbed countless practitioners, devouring not only their blood essence but also their wisdom and all their excess, such as bloodlines and legacies. It could be said that he was a grandmaster encompassing myriad paths. But those were all auxiliary. Only the complete power of the blood red could transform him once more. After reaching the perfection of the Eighth Tribulation, ordinary practitioners were useless against him. Only Eighth Tribulation Universe Masters could make him stronger. But those Eighth Tribulation Universe Masters, each could carry their own origin source Tao arena, making it difficult for him to kill even one. With no target in sight, he came to the Yi family. Speaking of which, he also originated from the Yi family. Yi Wudao didn't dare linger in Shilu's cave and hurriedly took his leave. Standing on the ancestral mountain, he began to contact the patriarch Yi Xiaowang. He originally thought Shilu could directly kill Hu Qing, but unexpectedly, it was so troublesome. He had no choice but to inform the patriarch of the process as well. At the peak of the ancestral mountain, an elderly man with white hair and a hooked nose stood atop it, his face filled with vicissitudes. Upon noticing the arrival of the younger Yi Wudao, he remained silent. He was the Yi Xiaowang, the appointed sealed king of the ancient moon sect. Moreover, during the era of the Celestial Maiden, His strength far surpassed that of the original Divine Wood King and others. This formidable deterrent force had been maintained until now. All of it stemmed from his legacy, or rather a treasure. After obtaining that treasure, his blood essence had never faded. Blood essence represented divine power. If divine power didn't fade, then one would remain at the peak forever. If it weren't for forcibly breaking through the ninth tribulation realm back then, he could have maintained his status as the eighth tribulation universe master all along. It was all because of greed, and this greed hadn't ceased yet. Seeing Divine Wood King surpassing himself, the patriarch of the Bai family also regained his peak. He was anxious, so he chose to cooperate with the terrifying existence that emerged from the blood-colored treasure. All the talk about the power of life back then was fake. Everything was because of that treasure. Now, he didn't even know if his calculations were wrong. But in the pursuit of power, he had no choice. Wu Dao, you've worked hard this time. After a moment of silence, Yi Xiaowang unexpectedly showed a gentle expression, turning to look at Yi Wu Dao, the descendant who resembled him the most. Equally greedy, the pursuit of power had reached its peak. Even his own daughter could be betrayed. But she was also his descendant. Although this descendant was probably a reincarnated practitioner, he also had the bloodline of their Yi family. For a moment, Yi Wudao didn't understand the patriarch's meaning and was a little dazed. Patriarch, tomorrow, I will go to visit that Taoist Tianji. You just need to stabilize Shower. As for Ling Yun, don't trouble him anymore. Let there be a quiet person left for our Yi family. After living for so many years, Yi Xiaowang had seen through some things. Yes. Yi Wudao's face brightened. With the matter settled, he didn't linger on the clan mountain and went straight back to the main mansion. But on the clan mountain, the Yi Xiaowang remained standing. The matter of seclusion was also revealed. Gazing at the blood-red sky, he fell into thought. The next day, a trace of blood color streaked across the sky. Long Night City welcomed the second day. There was no daytime, only night. Let's use the crimson color to differentiate. For cultivators, they don't particularly pursue black and white. Either is fine. Everyone can get through. Hu Qing had been in the room the whole time, waiting for someone to come to him. A presence, no less formidable than his own, descended upon the sect residence. He noticed the visitor immediately, a faint smile playing on his lips as he began to rise to prepare tea. You're here already. He couldn't resist a teasing remark. Initially, he was worried the other party might take some time. By then, Jian Wushuang and the others might arrive. That would be somewhat disadvantageous to him. Hu Qing's aim was to settle everything before Jian Wushuang and the others arrived. Then, he would take the initiative to approach Jian Wushuang and return to Qishan Temple together. This place was just an interlude. Someone had commissioned him to come here. That's why he was so attentive. If it weren't for the commission, he would have gone to find Jian Wushuang long ago. Clack! The wooden door made a crisp sound. Hu Qing's voice remained calm. Please come in. The door of branches was pushed open. An old man with a hooked nose stood at the threshold wearing a gray linen robe. Instead of entering, he smiled lightly. Dao friend, could we have a chat in the void? As he spoke, he forcefully manipulated a strong divine power, pulling Hu Qing through the fabric of space, entering the void of the primordial black heaven. Hu Qing still held a cup of tea in his hand, surprised. So direct. TSK, aren't you the same? Yi Xiaowang sneered. Bringing Yi Lingxiao back to the Yi family without mentioning compensation was quite suspicious, especially coming from a super powerhouse at the Eighth Tribulation. Bringing Yi Lingxiao to the ancient moon spacetime in the desolate land was quite laughable. Would an Eighth Tribulation super powerhouse need to curry favor with their Yi family? While the Yi family was influential in the ancient moon spacetime in the broader context, there was only one family with an Eighth Tribulation realm powerhouse, hardly considered top tier. At best, they were second-rate. An Eighth Tribulation super powerhouse wouldn't bother currying favor with a second-rate family, leaving only one reason. The other party was probing them, probing their treasures. What did the Yi family have? The blood-colored power, and the crimson treasure of the Yi Xiaowang. You've entered my Yi family, and for whatever reason, I don't want to know, but today you must die. Yi Xiaowang spread his arms, and the surrounding spacetime instantly began to solidify. Bloody splatter. The power of blood instantly enveloped the entire spacetime, including the two cultivators. Except, there was also a thin monster approaching from afar. Buzz. The newcomer was also the target of Hu Qing this time. Shilu. Hu Qing's face showed a hint of joy. He somewhat liked this directness. Coming up and striking immediately, with much less beating around the bush. Actually, he could have acted in the Long Night City, but in order not to kill those cultivators by mistake, he had been waiting for them to come to him. He was unwilling to harm the innocent, but the other party was trying not to expose their identity. Shilu was somewhat surprised to hear his name being called out directly. His figure also stopped, and his gaze was astonished as he said, "You know me? A product of the Machine Clan. Someone has been eyeing you since the moment you were born in the northern spacetime." Yi Xiaowang was also very surprised. He didn't expect someone to know about Shilu's situation. Not good. He quickly realized that something was amiss. Hu Qing knew about Shilu's existence. Perhaps there was a big shot behind this. Coming here was also to eradicate Shilu. He understood Shilu as well, a creature without bottlenecks. Allowing it to grow would definitely be a disaster for the northern spacetime. Hu Qing came here, probably to eradicate Shilu. Being so confident, then, attack together. Yi Xiaowang didn't hesitate, directly roaring angrily, and his divine power soared to 13 million. Shilu also knew that this time he had encountered a tough opponent. His golden power erupted, and his divine power directly broke through to 15 million. One at the peak of the 8th Tribulation Realm, one at the complete stage of the 8th Tribulation Realm. The two joined forces. Even if the Pope of the ancient Moon sect came, it would be difficult to suppress them. However, Hu Qing was extremely calm. He was prepared for this. With both hands open, one hand brought down the sun and moon, and divine power surged like a spring eruption. At the same time, there was also a huge heavenly canopy descending. That was Hu Qing's origin source Dao Arena, the origin source Dao Arena of the 8th Tribulation Realm. He inherited the last origin source of the Celestial Maiden and reached the complete stage of the 8th Tribulation in one fell swoop. His divine power also erupted to 15 million. The sun and moon in his hands turned into an ancient staff, sweeping away everything. The solidified space was instantly shattered. How is this possible? Yi Xiaowang couldn't believe it. His spacetime blockade was instantly broken, and he also felt the true strength of Hu Qing, the universe master at the complete stage of the 8th Tribulation Realm. With the Dao Arena descending, Hu Qing's divine power surged again. It had already reached the level of the Pope of the ancient Moon sect. Shilu was also a little panicked. At this moment, he only had 15 million divine power. Seeing spacetime being shattered, both of them were in mortal danger. Yi Xiaowang, hand over that treasure to me now, otherwise, we will all perish. Shilu anxiously looked at Yi Xiaowang. The reason he returned to the Yi family was for the power of blood within that treasure. But he underestimated Yi Xiaowang's ambition. How could he possibly give away such a crucial treasure? He was not Divine Wood King, willing to give up his treasure. Shilu was not Danbao either, who could keep his promise. However, Hu Qing didn't care about any of this. He swung his ancient staff and charged straight at Shilu. Yi Xiaowang posed no threat to him. He wasn't here for Yi Xiaowang, but to eliminate Shilu. This monster did not belong to the northern spacetime. He had come on the orders of the Realm King to kill Shilu. Heaven Wheel! Hu Qing shouted angrily, sweeping his staff towards Shilu and shattering his divine body instantly. In his origin source Dao Arena, he was almost invincible. He relentlessly crushed Shilu without holding back at all. Shilu's divine body continually shattered and then regenerated. Having absorbed so much blood-colored power, he had long attained an immortal body, but each injury caused a backlash to his divine body. This method of endurance was not a solution. Damn it! Shilu roared. Yi Xiao, you'll die with me. An enraged Shilu cursed Yi Xiaowang. If he had absorbed that blood-colored treasure, he would not be in such a passive state. The blood-colored power was crucial for the first stage of his life. As long as he could fully devour the blood-colored power, he would step into the ninth tribulation. At that point, how could he fear the bald monk in front of him? Yi Xiaowang noticed that Hu Qing did not attack him, making him even less anxious. Compared to Yi Wudao's plan, he valued his treasure more. Without the treasure, the blood-colored power would be useless to him. Why would he give the treasure to Shilu? Humph! Yi Xiaowang snorted coldly, completely ignoring Shilu being crushed by Hu Qing. When you came, you were probably eyeing my treasure, a wolf with wild ambitions. How could I let you succeed? He hadn't fully mastered that treasure himself. When the path to resurrection opened in the future, he would have endless opportunities. How could he abandon it? Boom! Shilu's divine body shattered again, and his strength began to decline. After restoring his original form once more, he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said defiantly, "Damn it! If I had reached the complete form of the first stage, how could you defeat me? I have the bloodline of the Frost Demon clan, and I can become even stronger." He clenched his fists, forcibly enhancing his divine power, and actively charged at Hu Qing. However, the disparity in their strength was immense. Hu Qing didn't even use his ancient staff. He lifted a foot and kicked Shilu hard in the face, sending him flying through the void. But in the next moment, his figure flashed and appeared within the clouds below. Shilu's body, uncontrollably plummeting, was caught by Hu Qing's staff. Amplified by a secret technique, this strike directly halved Shilu's divine power. Shilu was rendered completely incapable of fighting. Hiss! Yi Xiaowang couldn't help but gasp when he saw this. That staff strike just now, if it had been him, he would have perished. The mysterious strong man before him was too terrifying. The two of them didn't even have the ability to resist. Suspended in the void, with only half his body left and unable to even regenerate his flesh, Shilu's eyes were about to burst. Clenching his single fist, he raved, "Kill me! If you kill me, my blood will stain the entire northern starry sky. If you dare, kill me." This is the first time I've heard such a request. Hu Qing sent out a huge wave of energy with one hand, suppressing Shilu's divine power to its lowest again. But I can't grant it. When the Realm King entrusted this task to him, he had said not to kill Shilu in the northern starry sky. It was best to seal him first. After sealing, he would be sent to the Realm God Continent for execution. The Realm God Continent, akin to the divine realm of the subsidiary spacetime, was the ultimate place for all things and much more stable than the subsidiary spacetime. By the time Shilu was executed there would be no backlash. Even if there was, it couldn't affect the Realm God Continent. Moreover, the Realm God Continent housed mechanical beings that could disperse this blood energy. Yi Xiaowang, someone wants to give you a chance. Bring your daughter Yi Lingxiao here, and all past grievances will be forgiven. Hu Qing stood in the void, speaking calmly. Sealing Shilu required a person and a supreme treasure. Yi Lingxiao, who wielded the blood-colored origin source, was needed to seal Shilu. She would be reborn then, and the Realm King had already promised to reshape her origin source. However, the reshaped origin source would be that of an emperor. With the Realm King's help, Yi Lingxiao could cultivate to the fifth tribulation again, or even higher. Upon hearing Hu Qing's words, Yi Xiaowang didn't hesitate and agreed immediately. He had no chance to resist now. With a single hand, he summoned Yi Lingxiao from Long Night City. Originally resting in the clan residence, Yi Lingxiao suddenly appeared in the dark void, somewhat dazed. Before she could comprehend the situation, she saw her ancestor and a mutilated monster. Old ancestor? Yi Lingxiao glanced at the old ancestor and felt an overwhelming aura rising behind her. Seeing that it was Hu Qing, she couldn't help but shudder. She had long guessed that the other party would have ulterior motives but didn't expect it to happen so quickly. Yi Xiaowang casually tossed Yi Lingxiao over and respectfully said, "Dao friend, I suppose there's nothing more for me here, right? All right, you may leave." Hu Qing steadily caught Yi Lingxiao, no longer paying attention to Yi Xiaowang. Instead, he gently said, "Forgive me." Before Yi Lingxiao could react, Hu Qing reached out with one hand, thrusting it into her abdomen and extracting a complete origin source. A blood-red origin source with blood dripping down. Buzz! Yi Lingxiao's divine body trembled, and her life force began to drain away. No! A roar of unwillingness echoed from the depths of spacetime. A massive pyramid instantly descended. The spinning pyramid came to a stable stop, and the recent scene caused Wanyan's face to change dramatically. Only then did Hu Qing realize someone had arrived. Seeing the pyramid, although he couldn't sense the specific aura, he knew who was inside. As the pyramid had just arrived, Jian Wushuang also tore through spacetime to get there. Seeing Hu Qing present, his heart leaped with joy. It was effortless, all the people had gathered. But when he saw the corpse in Hu Qing's hands, he froze on the spot. Then he saw Wan Yan rush out of the pyramid like a madman. Hu Qing wanted to explain, but there was no time. He had to seal Shilu immediately because the blood-red origin source wouldn't last long. He had said he wouldn't harm Yi Lingxiao. This blood-red origin source was a disaster within her body and had to be removed. The person wasn't truly dead but would reincarnate and obtain a better origin source. By then, he would make amends, even if it meant setting up a grand banquet to apologize. But he couldn't ignore the Realm King's request. Faced with the enraged Wan Yan, he could only seal the spacetime, blocking him. At this moment, Wu Zua and Dongsheng also rushed out of the pyramid, stopping Wan Yan. Jian Wushuang also reacted, breaking Hu Qing's sealed spacetime with a single hand and questioning, "Hu Qing, what are you doing?" Although he had initially thought of using Yi Lingxiao to enhance his own divine power, he had never intended to harm her. He had always pursued a win-win situation. Why had Hu Qing turned into a killer? This wasn't Hu Qing's character. Having known Hu Qing for so many years, he couldn't believe Hu Qing would do such a thing. But the facts were right in front of him. What could he do but question him? They hadn't returned to Qishan Temple yet, and he didn't want to cause any discord midway. "Brother Wushuang, I will give you an explanation, but not now." Hu Qing, holding the blood-colored origin source, handed Yi Lingxiao's corpse to Jian Wushuang. Then, he formed seals with his hands and began preparing to seal Shilu. Holding the cold corpse, Jian Wushuang sighed and glanced at the monster. He was sure it was the one that had escaped from him. Shilu, too, noticed Jian Wushuang. His eyes were filled with complexity, and he turned to look at the blood-colored origin source in Hu Qing's hand, his greed evident. If he could devour this origin source, he might reach the peak of the first stage. Hu Qing formed seals and glanced at the still-present Yi Xiaowang. With a casual wave, he forcibly extracted the treasure from Yi Xiaowang's body, a blood-colored crystal. It closely resembled the one atop the pyramid. Seeing all this, Jian Wushuang seemed to understand. He brought Yi Lingxiao's corpse to Wan Yan's side. "Wan Yan, don't worry. As long as her soul hasn't returned to the river of time, I can help you revive her." Wu Zua comforted from the side. As long as there was a soul, he could ask the Realm King for help. The Realm King could assist in Yi Lingxiao's reincarnation, but her memories might be lost. Jian Wushuang didn't know how to comfort him, so he just patted his shoulder. Everything depended on Hu Qing's explanation. He had no other way. Meanwhile, Hu Qing confronted Shilu, who was seriously injured. Jian Wushuang was curious. Why were these two fighting? Logically, they shouldn't have any conflict. Everyone else was also very surprised. At this moment, a phantom descended from above. Dressed in dark green with antennae on his forehead, it was the projection of the Realm King. Seeing the Realm King appear, Jian Wushuang reacted immediately. Pulling Wu Zua along, he hurried forward. "Greetings, Realm King." Jian Wushuang cupped his hands in salute. Wu Zua, now acting more respectfully, exchanged pleasantries before bringing up Yi Lingxiao's reincarnation. Realm King smiled faintly and pressed his palm down. "Rest assured, I have already prepared a new origin source and body for her. She has successfully reincarnated." The reason for the delay was because he went to guide Yi Lingxiao's soul to reincarnate, and upon birth she would be an emperor. She possessed the ultimate origin source. For Realm King, this was not difficult. Upon hearing this, Wan Yen hurried forward, gratitude evident in his eyes. If he had known that Yi Lingxiao's death was orchestrated by Realm King, he might not have felt this way. In truth, everything behind the scenes was Realm King's plan. Yi Lingxiao's appearance by Wan Yan's side was also his doing. All right, once Hu Qing seals Shilu, let him explain to you. Realm King's expression was indifferent, but he was thinking that after Hu Qing sealed Shilu, he would take Shilu directly back to the Realm God continent. He would leave the remaining explanations to Hu Qing. He couldn't be both the good guy and the bad guy. The honest Hu Qing would take on everything. Only then did everyone carefully look at Hu Qing and Shilu. Wus were exclaimed, "Hu Qing, how did you become so strong? Exceeding 15 million divine power, overwhelming everything. Far stronger than divine Wood King. Currently the number one in ancient moon spacetime. Only slightly weaker than those eternal beings. This power, it's somewhat strange?" Jian Wushuang noticed through Hu Qing's divine power that there was something peculiar about it. That power indeed belonged to Hu Qing, yet it wasn't exactly Hu Qing's current power. 19 million divine power. This level of battle strength was something only Qi Zhouxiao had achieved before. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but marvel. He had thought his own abilities were already extraordinary, but it turned out Hu Qing's strength was just as formidable. Seeing their astonishment, Realm King explained, "This is Hu Qing's secret technique. His true self isn't this powerful, but he possesses the battle strength of the peak of the 8th tribulation." Secret technique? Jian Wushuang was moved. What kind of secret technique is this powerful? At the peak of the 8th tribulation, having 12 million divine power was impressive. The limit was 15 million divine power, but achieving that was extremely difficult. How long had Hu Qing been cultivating? Future self. Realm King clasped his hands behind his back, a look of pride on his face. With my guidance and the power left behind by that celestial maiden, Hu Qing created the ultimate secret technique of the heavenly Tao, the future self, which allows him to harness future divine power. In other words, Hu Qing in the future could reach this level. Jian Wushuang quickly grasped the key point and sighed. To overdraw future power, there must be backlash, right? Yes, there is indeed backlash, but his heavenly Tao has been cultivated to perfection. Unfortunately, he was born in the wrong era. If it were in the past, I might have had to relinquish my position as Realm King. The Realm King couldn't help but lament. Jian Wushuang was not too surprised. Hu Qing had always had a profound understanding of Zen, and the end of that path was the heavenly Tao. This also made him think of that eyeball. The eyeball transformed from the sky-sight heavenly chessboard. The space-time Tao within the chessboard turned into the tribulation armor. The eyeball was the essence of the chessboard. With such reliance, he felt at ease handing the eyeball to Hu Qing. Hu Qing had the strength to wield this supreme treasure. Although this supreme treasure was left by teacher Xianxia, it was indeed not suitable for him. He could only give it to Hu Qing to use. Now Hu Qing had the strength. Future self. Clad in white robes, unstained by dust, his divine power could shake the entire ancient moon spacetime. Hu Qing formed a seal with one hand and held a blood-colored crystal with the other. Although Yi Xiaowang was unwilling, he dared not step forward. Compared to handing the treasure to Shilu, he trusted Hu Qing more, because there was no murderous intent on Hu Qing. Even though Yi Lingxiao had died at Hu Qing's hands, he still believed Hu Qing would not harm him. The key was that facing such a powerful 8th Tribulation Universe Master, if he wanted him dead, it wouldn't take more than a breath to finish him off. Hu Qing really didn't care about him. As the seal and the blood-colored crystal merged, combined with the blood-colored origin source, Hu Qing whispered, "Demon sealing wave." Buzz. The surrounding spacetime was instantly shattered. The originally intact primordial black heaven was no longer whole. In the void, there was a patch of paleness. The twisted spacetime turned into a tornado, rushing towards Shilu, trying to seal him. This was the sealing method taught by Realm King, and it was the only way to seal and send Shilu away. Because the opponent didn't belong to the northern spacetime but came from the more powerful southern spacetime. Even in the southern spacetime, Xilu was a terrifying existence. Created by the Machine Clan, he accidentally drifted into the northern spacetime. At first, Realm King didn't notice it. It was only because of the appearance of the pyramid and the faint aura it leaked that Realm King discovered that there was a similar power in the ancient moon spacetime. It was Xilu's power. Fortunately, the opponent hadn't become a complete form and could be sealed. Otherwise, the entire northern spacetime could have faced destruction. Damn it! Xilu had no way to resist the seal, and his physical body was already in shambles, making it impossible to escape. Just as he was in despair, a glimmer of opportunity appeared in his eyes. It was a power from the ancient moon ruins. Xilu mobilized the last bit of divine power within him, and his appearance instantly changed to that of a celestial maiden. This was the power he had absorbed when the ancient moon ruins disappeared. When this power emerged, Hu Qing's technique paused momentarily. Xilu's face lit up with joy. Now's the time. He spread his hands, and from the vortex of the seal, there was an endless blood force. Could seal him, but he could also absorb it. The reason he had been severely injured was probably to prevent him from absorbing the blood power within the seal. The blood treasure and the blood origin source. These were necessary treasures for Xilu to become a complete form in the first stage. Once absorbed, he could step into the 9th tribulation realm. Realm King noticed something was wrong and hurriedly shouted, "Hu Qing, don't hesitate, act now." But it was too late. At such a critical moment, hesitating for even a breath's time could result in a major mistake. Not to mention that Hu Qing had underestimated Xilu's power. He originally thought the opponent was powerless, but he didn't expect Xilu to actively absorb the scarlet blood power. Haha! Thanks for helping me. Xilu crazily absorbed the blood force, laughing maniacally. You're all going to die. Buzz. The seal was shattered. In the deep void, Hu Qing's true self directly appeared. It merged with his future self. Divine power erupted once more. Senior Realm King, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Hu Qing said regretfully. I can only keep him in the northern spacetime. The original plan was to send him to the Realm God continent and then destroy him. But now that it was uncontrollable, he could only kill him on the spot. Although this would leave a hidden danger, it was better than letting him become a complete form. Realm King panicked at this moment and hurriedly persuaded, Don't let him become a complete form. I can still send him out of the northern spacetime. However, at that time, he would no longer be able to kill Xilu. But as long as it didn't endanger the northern spacetime, Realm King couldn't care less. Hu Qing was momentarily stunned but did not follow Realm King's suggestion. Instead, he proactively attacked Xilu. Now, Xilu had only recovered to his peak and was far from being Hu Qing's match. With his future self, Hu Qing's divine power directly exploded to 20 million. This was also the limit that the northern spacetime could bear. Xilu, who had just recovered to his peak, was again severely injured in his divine body. He turned and threatened Realm King. Northern Realm King, in my inherited memory, you exist. You are a dead man. If I fall in the northern spacetime, I, Xilu, swear to make your northern spacetime collapse. Stop that lunatic. And I promise to leave the northern spacetime once I become a complete form. Jian Wushuang and the others were bewildered, not knowing what was happening. The situation suddenly reversed. Realm King was hesitating. The complete form of Xilu was terrifying, but dying in his northern spacetime was even more terrifying. He couldn't make a choice. No, there's another way. Jian Wushuang stepped forward at this moment. He had been observing for a long time and finally understood the situation. Realm King, don't forget that the northern spacetime can bear life divine power up to 20 million. Even if Xilu reaches his complete form, he won't exceed 20 million. At that time, let the three eternal beings seal him together. Wouldn't that work? After all, the limit was 20 million divine power. By then, with 4 against 1, how could they lose? For super strong beings could drive the opponent away. Realm King's expression was very uncomfortable. He had considered this idea, but mainly because the opponent was a special creation from the southern spacetime, he didn't dare to gamble. It was better to send Shilu away now. It's best not to view Shilu with common sense. His creator is someone you wouldn't even dare to imagine. If anything goes wrong, the northern spacetime is finished. Realm King frowned, rejecting Jian Wushuang's suggestion. Beside him, Wu Zhu didn't seem to care at all. Adopting a defeatist attitude, he said, "At worst, we can just run away to the Realm God continent. I don't see what's so good about the northern spacetime anyway. Even the ninth tribulation realm can't exist here." Smack! Realm King lifted his foot and fiercely knocked on Wu Zhu's head, cursing, "Don't forget, your soul comes from the northern spacetime. If the northern spacetime is gone, do you think you can survive? To stay alive? It might be possible. Their soul origin source came from the northern spacetime, but it wasn't bound to it. But if they really did that, they would likely lose any hope of advancement. If their origin source universe was gone, they could rely on the path of resurrection. If the origin source of the northern spacetime was gone, then the practitioners of the northern spacetime would truly have no path of cultivation left." After realizing the gravity of the situation, everyone turned to look at Realm King. It was clear that they agreed with his course of action. They would send Shilu away first, no matter what happened next. As long as it wasn't in the northern spacetime, it wouldn't be their problem. "I'll go stop Hu Qing." Jian Wushuang reached out and summoned the pyramid, then turned to Realm King and said, "I can launch an attack of the secret realm level, but it requires a large amount of black radiance essence. We don't have this in the northern spacetime. Realm King, you must give me enough black radiance essence." Realm King, upon hearing this, finally remembered that Jian Wushuang still possessed the Machine Clan's treasure, the pyramid. With a swish, tens of thousands of black essence crystals appeared. "Make sure to stop Hu Qing for me. Rest assured." Jian Wushuang nodded. Hu Qing was now unwilling to bear the crime and thus wanted to leave Shilu behind. A blue aura erupted, directly performing the super-eternal ancient transformation. Jian Wushuang stood behind Hu Qing, with the pyramid hovering above him. "Babata, do not attack without my order." He didn't plan to attack Hu Qing. Persuading him was still the best option. The words he had just spoken to Realm King were only for the sake of the black radiance essence. However, he also believed Realm King was right. Sending away the scourge Shilu was much better than keeping him. "Hu Qing, stop." His voice was solemn, and he looked at Hu Qing with steady eyes. At this moment, Hu Qing, who was frantically attacking, was also somewhat helpless against Shilu. His attacks couldn't keep up with Shilu's absorption. His divine power had already surpassed 15 million, reaching an astonishing 18 million.